Now, I'm not actually sure that we're going to be able to get together over Christmas, right? It seemed like we were going to be, when I planned this vPub and the topic for tonight, I planned it around the idea of us getting together with friends and family over the holiday season, and that might not actually happen. It suddenly looks a wee bit ropey. But let's go for a wee bit of optimism and hope that it will happen. And tonight, I'm going to share with you some of the bullying tactics I have been known to use in order to get people curious about whiskey. I'll see you in a wee minute. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thursday night. Welcome to the vPub. I'm going to say at the head of the show tonight that I have had significant internet issues throughout this evening. I've done the very best I can. We lost our TV services too for a wee while. So I think we've got some problems locally. I'm really hoping that things hold together for the live session tonight. You can let me know if anything happens. I'll probably spot it from my side too. Nice to welcome you all again. Nice to welcome you for our Thursday night. Looking forward to some quiet time tonight. Just us. Looking forward to the holiday season. We don't really know what kind of shape it's going to be this year. Certainly, I'm speaking to you from a UK European perspective here. Things are changing by the day, of course. But regardless, we're hoping that we get some time together with friends and family. And it's that idea, that kind of coming together type thing, that put this idea for a vPub into my mind. I've talked often about how I have become this kind of impassioned whiskey geek through my enjoyment of actually sharing the whiskey. That's what the channel is founded upon, is sharing whiskey, of course. And that idea that I was 35 years old before I discovered what an amazing thing this was. So I quickly set to work on all my friends, and really not just my friends, but anybody that would listen to me around a table about whiskey. And over time, I started to develop little kind of tricks and stories and things that I realized might work for even people that were only ever so slightly whiskey curious. So that's what we're going to try and do tonight. I'm going to share with you some whiskies that I would use, not specific bottles, but a type, a style, a profile. There'll be lots that you can interchange. This is nothing to do with go out and buy this whiskey, recommend this whiskey. That's not happening tonight. It's going to be, you will probably already have examples at home that fit the slot quite nicely without you replicating exactly my bottles. Anyway, let's jump in and welcome some of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies waiting patiently in the lounge. 200 of you in already. It's wonderful to welcome you all so early. Thank you for waiting patiently. Bruno Martins is here saying, good evening, Roy. Good evening, my friend. I hope things in Portugal are very, very well. Good to welcome you here. Frank Peathead is here as well. Good to see you, Frank. Good to always welcome you here, my friend. Whiskey Novice Jim, you might be seeing a wee appearance, hopefully, from Jim Whiskey Novice a bit later in December as part of our wee kind of fun celebrations. Ben Demon Hunter is here. Mike Johnson is saying, evening, Roy. Mike, I wonder if that's a new name. My short-term memory is getting a wee bit worse in recent times, so if I welcomed you before, welcome again, but I think it might be your first time, Mike. Nice to see you. James Morgan is here, Andy C, superb, Jerry Miller, Young Go, Marks Kreitner in Austria, Jed Smith is here too. Evening, Roy. The internet gremlins seem to have disappeared. Hope you're well. Thank you. Please don't speak too soon, Jed. Wonderful to see you, my friend. Helen is here as well. You'll maybe see Helen and Andy in the flesh a bit later tonight, because we have a return by popular request and demand of Is It a Speyside? Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this wee coin. This wee coin you can only win. You can't buy this coin. They're not gifted. They're only won. And we play a wee game where you've got to guess what the core range expression is in 10 questions of yes or no answers, and you can win one of these coins. But the people in the lounge, all you guys hanging out on bar stools in the vPub lounge here on YouTube, that's the chat I'm interacting with, by the way. If you're on Facebook and you see me talking to people, it's the YouTube people I'm speaking to. Apologies if you're watching on Facebook. Stay comfortable there if you like, but hop on over to YouTube with the link and you can hang out with all the barflies here. So we've brought this back in order for people to win these coins. If you're here in the lounge, the first person to guess the core expression It also wins a coin, as well as the people appearing live. They can either be the sniper doing the guessing, that's the tough gig, or they can be the target, somebody that has a hidden bottle off screen. So we'll play that a wee bit later in the stream as well. It's always good fun. Wow, that looks like, I wonder if that's an L or an I, Landrick or Yandrick. Let's go with Landrick Waldmann. He's saying, evening, guys. Welcome in, my friend. I'm not sure if that's an L or an I that you're starting your name with. I'm going to assume it's an L. Time for a dram. Gregor is in. Fantastic, Gregor. Good to see you. And cousin Kevin is here as well. Superb. Neil Laverty and Ireland Whiskey Weekend. Dram Harrow is here. Okawami. Good evening, everyone. Another new name. You're very welcome here, Okawami. Tell us where you're from and what you've got in the glass. Stefan Novak. Guten Abend. Stefan, so great to see you in tonight. So I managed to make it to Frankfurt last weekend, as you know, just after I kept the vPub relatively short last week. I'm going to try and do the same again this week. I went straight over to Frankfurt on the Friday for InterWhisky Festival, or the InterWhisky Fair, the Whiskey Fair. It'd been 2 years since I'd been there for obvious reasons, and I was really looking forward to getting back again, and it was fantastic. I keep saying this expression over and over again, and I hope you'll forgive me for it, but it really felt like medicine. It felt like a very healthy thing to do in unhealthy circumstances. Now, there were a lot of people spooked. There were a lot of people that didn't go. It meant the footfall was very light. There was lots of space available. But it also meant that a lot of exhibitors pulled out, I think, at very short notice as well, which is understandable and fine. The show went ahead, and for me, it was never really about the whiskey, the master classes, or the event itself. It was really using it as an excuse to see my friends again. And that is where the medicine was administered. Laughing, talking, relaxing, just really, really good fun. Whatever the future, the few weeks ahead, the few months ahead holds for you all, I hope that you have the ability to do something similar, because meeting Stefan Novak, meeting Eira McFault, Rolf Isaacson, Chris, and of course Doc out there. Who am I forgetting? Because there were 6 of us. I think I said 6 names. I'm the 6th, am I? Doc, Eira, Chris, Rolf, myself, and Stefan. Of course, I've already mentioned them. Yes, I'm the 6th person. It was wonderful just to get together and have a really nice time and eat some fantastic German food. I came back at least a kilo heavier, I'm pretty sure. Callum Craig is saying, if you're on Virgin Media, then it's a national issue. I think that's exactly what it is, Callum. I've tried everything and I've tried it twice. I'm hoping it just hangs together for tonight. You'll know what's going on, everyone, if something does go awry tonight. Whiskey Novice is saying, cheers, Roy. Fantastic. Thanks very much, Jim. And Yuri is saying, good evening, Roy. Good evening, everyone. Yuri, it's always nice to welcome you in. I wonder, Yuri, where are you? Because I've always just assumed that you're in Russia somewhere, but that might not be the case. Are you in Ukraine or something? Gav's Dram is saying, hi, Roy. Lots of problems on the internet today. Aye. Not the best day to be going live, perhaps. Alistair Gray saying, and the barflies, good evening. And Menno, multi-mission Belgium, is saying, we're pretty much buggered here too, Christmas-wise, by the looks of it. Yes, I know. Listen, we're not going to know what the full extent of everything is until the next few days, but it's looking a wee bit scary again. Berkey73 is in again, saying, evening, Roy. Virgin TV and internet been down all over the country since 11 a.m. And Danny Heventon is saying, good evening, all. Good evening, Roy. We can only hope that it stays together. And Gino is in here as well. Good to see you, Gino. James Hope is here. Fantastic, James. Whiskey Nose, Scott Allen, superb Scott. I hope Becky's doing very, very well. And you name 101 Force 10. Superb. Wonderful to welcome so many of you in. Because it's just me tonight and I don't have a guest other than the people that are coming on to play a wee game of Is It a Speyside? Hopefully I'll get more of a chance to chat to you guys. Chris Moore is in. Evening all, evening barflies. Good evening, Chris. Last drop, Chris. I'm topping my dram that I've left over to the side. I did a wee bottle kill as we were going live tonight, just before we went live, and I've got it topped off and parked off to the side for a comparison a wee bit later on. I'm in Leicester, says Yuri. Oh yeah, Leicester, Ukraine. But shortly relocating to Scotland. Fantastic, Yuri. It's easy to assume. I wonder why the name Yuri. You've obviously got some history in Eastern Europe or something. So maybe if you ever make it to Scotland, we'll get to raise a glass and I can find out what's happening there, Yuri. Rob Halford is here. Flurb X-Ray as well. Superb. Good to see you back. Flurb, good to see you back, Rob. Maltbox, Andy is in. Superb, Andy. I hope you're doing very well, my friend. I'm hoping to be able to reach out with you to celebrate a wee bit in the month of December as well. And Okawami saying, thanks for the warm welcome, Roy. My name is Jerome. Jerome, an occasional viewer from NL? NL? Oh my goodness, the Netherlands. Always enjoying your vPub, and today with the Glenturret 12 in my glass. P.S. Also a whiskey mystery barfly. Fantastic, Okawami. Wonderful to see you here. NL. Is that an abbreviation for an American state, maybe? Netherlands? I don't know. Alistair Grayson, glad we have the power and heating back. Still many places in Aberdeenshire without. Asking Santa for a new garden fence. Yes. Storm Arwen obliterated all the high ground in the UK a few days back, and there's still some people, Alistair, you included perhaps, looking like it's taken a wee while to recover. West Harrow in the Netherlands is confirming that it is the Netherlands, and Greg's whiskey guy Greg in Paris is shouting, it's the Netherlands, Roy. Sorry, maybe I'm a wee bit sleepy this Thursday night. Anyway, I want to just make a note of something. Has anybody worked out or noticed that the down thumb button has disappeared from YouTube? Over the course of the years, we've always kind of talked about, you know, the thumbs up, thumbs down thing. But they've decided for various reasons to ditch the number count next to the button is still there, but there's no number count next to it. And I don't know how I feel about that. As a creator, I feel a sense of relief because even although, you know, you become quite thick-skinned about down thumbs and things, you just kind of let it Teflon off your shoulder, right? You kind of, it's always going to be something that you've got your eye on, and it can niggle you, it can upset you, and it can make you read into things that aren't really there. Oh, was the topic, was it the words I said, or whatever? It doesn't matter. But we did start to rely on it as a bit of a metric. When we saw, you know, 6, 8 down thumbs going into double figures or whatever in the first week of a video, it would need to be really, really high view numbers for that to be justified. But if it was normal viewing numbers, you would know that maybe you've gone, so you were using it as a wee bit of feedback. However, as a creator, I think on balance, I'm ambivalent that count has gone. As a YouTube user, I think I'm a wee bit sad that it's gone, because immediately there's lots of crap out there on YouTube, and it was the quickest way for you to look at a tutorial, a nice piece of content, whatever it was, and have it verified that it was worth your time. Because the down thumbs, even though there's going to be hundreds and potentially thousands and more down thumbs on there, as a ratio, you always looked at the ratio of likes to down thumbs, and it gave you some feedback. Now what you're going to have to do is look at the number of up thumbs versus the view count. I suppose that's going to be your verification now. In WhiskeyTube, in the world that we like to kind of hang out, I would say that the down thumb thing is ridiculously small. It's less than 2% typically, which is very, very small for YouTube as a platform. But now that means that I think that Tumblr and a couple other platforms over the years have had down thumb counts, but now YouTube was the last one to have a down thumb count, and it's now gone. So anyway, it's there. You can still use the down thumb count. I see it, but I have to go into analytics to see it now. And yeah, but it's a very recent change. It might have been changed actually last week, but I just didn't spot it last week. Jimmy Legg is here. Superb, Jimmy. It's not a vPub until you've pulled up your bar stool at the bar. Good to welcome my friend. Sugar Kitty is here as well, and First Fill Whiskey. Looks like they are my two moderators for this evening. Thank you, guys. Thanks for looking out for me. I hope you can stay for the stream. Scotch for Dummies is here as well, my friends from Indianapolis, who recently had a big bash, a smashing party, drinking Brora and things and celebrating their 6 years in the YouTube landscape, which would have been fantastic for me to get there. Maybe next time, boys. That would be amazing. Maybe next time. Okay, let's get on with this thing. Let's imagine. Sorry, Sandro is asking. It's okay. Bravo, Roy. Grazie. Ciao from Milano. He's given me lots of thumbs up and waving. Fantastic. Grazie mille to you, Sandro, as well. Let's imagine, everyone, that over the holidays, you're going to have a moment where you're relaxing around a table together or in a room, and you're in a space with friends and family. And you're at the point that you realize they are not sharing whiskey with you yet. Now, here's the most important thing that I have to open this whole thing with. There are lots of people out there that are not interested in whiskey at all, in any way. You need a sliver of curiosity. You need them to be curious in some way. You need there to be something that you can lever open, that you need to be, it needs to be willing ears that you're speaking to. You'll know your quarry, you'll know who these people are, you'll know their personality, and you'll know if they're ever likely to welcome an offer of a pour from you. What I tend to do if I'm in the company of people that don't drink whiskey, I ask them, I talk to them, do they like, and if you can tell by the response very, very quickly. And I tend to just sit there maybe with a whiskey myself, and people will probably see the whiskey that I have here, and they'll ask me questions about it. At that point, that's when the discussion starts. But instead of forcing whiskey onto them and getting out lots of bottles and intimidating them with glasses and pours and information, I think it's nice to share a couple of things that will sound like hyperbole to most folk, but not to you. You can talk about how whiskey has changed your life in a positive way, how it's taught you to smell and taste things more, not just whiskey, but things outside of whiskey too. You can even say some pretty profound things like it has changed your relationship with alcohol. That's certainly true for me. And then you can talk about the concept of tasting as opposed to just drinking. And you'd be surprised how many people that resonates with. A lot of people are enjoying their beers, their wines, their mixed drinks, cocktails, whatever it is, and they taste the first couple of sips. But beyond that, it's just muscle memory and it becomes just drinking. That resonates with people, and I know that it certainly means a lot to me. When you start to say these kind of big, kind of gilding the lily type statements and then justify them, that's pretty compelling. And I think if you can get somebody's curiosity with that and make them understand that whiskey to you is not simply another social drink, but it's actually something that reminds you how wonderful it is to be alive, something that connects with all our primary senses and gives us that feeling of gratefulness. I know how ridiculous that sounds at the head of the live stream, but I know that a lot of you watching this and a lot of you that are in live tonight know what I'm talking about. Jesse Artisalo. Jesse, you're a barfly, and that looks like a new name. Bunnahavn 12, he's suggesting. Port Charlotte 10, Ardbeg Korvreken from Finland. Jesse, welcome in tonight, my friend. Bunnahavn 12, Port Charlotte 12, and Ardbeg Korvreken. I would suggest they are all worthy, but maybe with the exception of the Bunnahavn 12, the Port Charlotte, and the Ardbeg, in terms of ABV, is punchy, 50% and above for a newbie. Anthony Lambert saying, my brother spends a large part of the year in Scotland but doesn't drink whiskey. I've tried my best to win him over, but no luck, no matter how I evangelize. It needs to be, you're absolutely right, my friend. Anthony, he needs to be curious, and if he's not, don't keep pushing. But maybe let him understand how special the thing is that you are keeping from him. My dad drinks Captain Morgan and Diet Coke, says Jimmy Legg, and he will drink nothing else. Can I give him your number, Roy? I would like to meet your dad, Jimmy Legg. I would like to meet your dad. Dave Cummins is saying, wow, you talk about a change in my life, whole new world. Dave Cummins famously never had a drop of drink in his life till 50 years old. And now he's a barfly. He's part of our community. And it's wonderful to have him. Dave, I hope you're doing very well. I'm going to pour something here. And I think a lot of you are going to be surprised about some of the whiskies that I might be sharing with you tonight. But the shackles are off tonight. I don't need to stand on my natural presentation soapbox and talk about natural colour and non-chill filtered and higher ABV and cask strength. And no, we can relax because we need to go into the shoes of somebody who's just whiskey curious. I need to leave all the weeds into the weed stuff out of the discussion for a little while and just kind of drop hints and or maybe reply to questions or whatever that they may have. Back off a little bit and remember that if they do leave your company and go off to start exploring on their own, they're going to be down the supermarket aisle. They're going to be going through duty-free. Well, we wish, right, if travel restrictions weren't. They're going to be going out there and picking up what they can pick up for not much money, which is going to mean that they're going to run into a lot of lower ABV filtered and coloured whiskies. That's exactly what those whiskies are there for, to encourage them in. Now, if they want to come and hang out with you a wee bit more and explore things and take things into the weeds and get their geek on a bit, fantastic. I'm sure you'll be well placed to do that for them. But tonight, I'm free of that. I can share with you whiskies that I'm not suggesting that everybody runs out and buys most of these whiskies. Probably you're maybe going to have on hand already. And if you don't, you'll have something that you can swap it out with. But the first one I'm going to pour is a Japanese whiskey. I'm going to pour this to start things off tonight. It's Nikka Coffey Malt, 45% ABV. So you might think, wait a minute, he's starting quite high at 45%. Well, it does not drink like 45%, let me tell you. So what I'm doing here is I've poured my measure in this wee Glencadam glass. Because the glass I'm about to tip this into, it's much harder. This is where people start to unsubscribe. And if I could count the down thumb button, you would start to see the down thumbs going. Sorry about the noise of the ice in the glass here. We'll stop it sliding around. It's much easier to pour or measure in a smaller glass because these rocks glasses, unless you use them regularly, you don't really know how much to fill them, and you can overfill them a little bit sometimes. But there we go. I've just tipped my Nikka single malt whiskey, Japanese malt whiskey, over a big chunk of ice. And I've done that for a couple of reasons. I've done it because my beginner, my whiskey curious person, I just want them to have something that they might enjoy, something that's going to be nice, something that they can not feel intimidated by or like they have to really work hard with. So if you pour them a dram in a tulip-shaped tasting glass, a blender's glass, and things like that, already it starts to become quite, perhaps not intimidating, but higher level. Pour them a whiskey in a glass over a chunk of ice and tell them that it's not typically how you drink whiskey, but occasionally you enjoy it and it's a nice way to start the night. Blair Stevenson has also started with a Nikka, but it's Nikka from the barrel. Fantastic. It's 51.4% ABV, but higher than this at 45. The other reason I've done this is because the ice, like this, takes a lot of the alcohol sting away. That's the biggest barrier you're going to get, is people finding it hot. This has cooled that heat right down. And because this is Nikka Coffey Malt, it tastes like chocolate. I kid you not. Slanch everyone, welcome. Cheers. It's supposed to take the heat out of it. John Lamond is in. He's just said, best thing you could do with it, take the taste out with ice. John, thank you for that, my friend. This is a lovely whiskey. Don't listen to John, whiskey tutor John. On its own, neat. This is a fantastic whiskey. Poured over ice, it brings creamy textures out. It brings this lovely, almost liqueur-like milk chocolate, white chocolate flavour. The spice, it's very lightly spiced anyway, but the spice that you would normally get sipping it neat, any kind of heat brought along by the ABV is gone. This is remarkably cool, creamy, and chocolatey. But thanks, John. It's nice of you to join, even if it is with tongue-in-cheek comments, my friend. Alistair McPhail is saying, Aquaviti and Barfly mates, I can't stay. A wee bit going on here, but great to see you, Alistair. I know that you're probably in tough environments down there. I think you're in Eastern Africa now. Thanks for your inspiration, advice, and friendship. That's a very nice sentiment, Alistair. Thank you very much to you for yours too. You bring a lot to our community, my friend. Cheers. And Menno is saying, I literally never drink whiskey like that. Peter is saying, I prefer Nikka from the barrel over Nikka from the tumbler, to be honest. Listen, you have to try it. Everybody's talking about smooth, and Menno's saying serves you right. And JG's saying, well, that did not go well. Jesus, he's dying. Where's Lynn? Greg's Whiskey Guy is saying, I'll say more praline than chocolate, Roy. Liqueur chocolates is what it reminds me of. So that fits with your praline thing. Absolutely right. Andrew Pierce is saying, perhaps not the first dram, but I'd certainly get them tried something peaty. It's what gave me a wow moment and got me excited about whiskey. So what we're talking about there, Andrew, is we're talking about contrasts, things that they don't expect. So if you give them something peaty, peaty whiskey has been very successful for me, very powerful. My biggest alloy has been peaty whiskey, no doubt. However, what I also encourage you to do is to tell stories. So as you pour them this, talk about the idea that when you're pouring it over ice, this ice is going to take away a lot of the flavour. It's going to dull down a lot of the aromas. It's going to make the whiskey just not give up anything like it potentially could. What you've offered them is just a nice drink to get that whiskey flavour on their palate, nothing more. Then you can take a wee neat pour of the exact same drink, so back into that same glass I used. I'm only going to pour a wee tiny amount. And you can tell them a story about the whiskey you've poured them. Why have you poured them a Japanese whiskey, for example, or whatever other really sweet whiskey that you have? It's easy for me to talk about this whiskey because Japanese whiskey has a story behind it, doesn't it? And I'm not talking about going back 100 years to Masataka Taketsuru and everything like that. Much more recent contemporary context, like Japanese whiskey became almost unattainable. It became really, really unaffordable, and it disappeared everywhere. It went from being unloved to being the sexiest, the most amazing new thing. And then it suffered from supply and demand issues, and it's struggling to come back. But there are whiskies out there that are starting to come back now. And there are Japanese whiskies out there that you can get for reasonable. I think this is about £45 from memory. I think this is a nice whiskey to have on a shelf. This is probably the sweetest whiskey I have, the most kind of rich chocolatey style. Praline, Greg, is absolutely right. It's mocha. There's got a creaminess to it, but the creaminess comes out over the ice more on the nose here. So you can start to talk to them about that. Are they getting a more powdery chocolate here? And this is a wee bit more like drinking chocolate, like dusty chocolate. Praline makes sense, Greg, absolutely. And now you've got a kind of really, not clear runny honey, but a dark, a rich honey. And as you search for fruit, maybe you could get like a ripe, kind of lychee note, something in syrup maybe. Everything this is dragging you very, very, very towards the sweet end of the spectrum. Everything about it is sweet. A wee bit of cold coffee now. So there's not much kind of floral happening here. There's not a lot of bright fruit. If you're imagining grain, you're drawn to think about roasted grains, chocolatey things. And then you can just let them try a little bit neat. They've just gone from having a few sips from their glass with the ice. Maybe they've enjoyed it. They've been able to feed back. Warm and thick. And it clings, sits on the palate. So where the nice creamy texture in this was nice on arrival, it quickly dissipates. It's very refreshing to drink over ice, right? It's very cleansing even. Whereas this clings and it stays on the palate. So you're encouraging them to just take a wee half sip and move it around their palate, move it around. And then ask them, how different did that taste? Neat versus pouring it over ice. Apart from the dilution thing, there's virtually no alcohol burn to me on this at all. For a beginner, there will be, even from the diluted one, the one over ice. And this one is suddenly warm and thick. So you can talk about a concept immediately, the difference between drinking and tasting, the difference between enjoyment, simple enjoyment, and perhaps enjoyment through appreciation, a different thing. where they're given a tulip glass and they don't need to be intimidated by it. It's just another way to drink the whiskey, but you can tell them that the tulip shape is to help concentrate aroma and flavour. And that's what it's all about. And everything feels like much more of a ceremony then. So I would say if you don't have something like Nikka Coffey grain, Nikka Coffey malt, anything, you know, there's an argument that you could even use a rum, honestly speaking, just to start the night off, or something that's going to just kind of get somebody used to the concept of drinking neat spirits if they're not used to such a thing. And then with each different pour and each different step up or step change, you tell them why you've chosen that bottle and you use it as an opportunity to share a wee story. McCann Fine and Rare is in. Good to see you. Good to see you, Doc. He's saying, Gordon Dundas, we missed you. It looks like Gordon's in as well. We did miss you last week, Gordon. Your stand-in did a very good job. But obviously we sat through the Tamdu experience tasting in Frankfurt. And certainly it would have been nice to have you there, big guy, but we understand why so many of you didn't travel out there. But your German replacement provided us, says Doc, with the phrase of the decade. He wanted to say hint of peat, but said pint of heat. That's right. He said a pint of heat. That's exactly right. A pint of heat. That's right. Everybody got a bit of a laugh out of that, and I think it will stick with us for a while. Good to see you in, Gordon. Good to see you in, my friend Doc. Menno's here saying, I am starting to see your point, Roy. Lure him in with the ice and take it from there. Dave Cummins is saying, for me, trying to share with his friends, I have had the best luck with contrasting a small lineup with whiskey in small tasting glasses. Absolutely. Kevin is saying, would you recommend a Lagavulin single grain as a sub for the Nikka? Would I? Over ice? Yes. Yes. 46%, whether it's the peated or the unpeated version, the red label or red label for unpeated and green label for peated in that. I think that could work. Certainly the peated one. Yes, I think honestly, Kevin, I think that would work. The sweetness in it as well. And what's really nice about that is you could talk about the exact same concept if you chose to get geeky. Talk about how whiskey is made. The idea that you make porridge, then you make beer, and then you take the beer that's it's not really drinkable as beer, I suppose. I suppose you can in some places, and then you distill it in a batch through a pot still to make single malt whiskey, to make malt whiskey, Scotch malt whiskey. If you take that exact same wash, the beer, and you put it through a much more efficient continuous still, you've got this product, coffee malt. And in the case of the Lagavulins that Kevin's talking about, through the Scotch definitions, it's single grain. They have to call it single grain. But I think it could work, absolutely. Ben Demon Hunter saying, gotta go, Roy. Late picking up my wife. Peace. Ben, it's nice of you to hang out with us for a wee while, and I hope to see you. And again, soon. Nice use of emojis as well, my friend. Jimmy Leg is saying, did you get too much aquavite last weekend? Aye, everybody get too much aquavite last weekend. Absolutely. I didn't get too much of them. I could have easily stayed for another couple of days. It was fantastic. Doc is saying, never too much, Roy. You're too polite, Doc. And it's you know, I think I would have really enjoyed that weekend. Under normal circumstances, it would have been a complete blast. But at every moment that I was conscious of feeling happy, I said it out loud because of how infrequent those times have been over the last year and a half. And I found the same words being echoed back at me, that other people were cognizant of the fact that they were very aware that they were in a happy place and very much enjoying themselves. I wonder, it was quite interesting. Superb. Okay. So we've given them their wee Japanese or their wee sweet whiskey. Let's suggest that it doesn't need to be a Japanese whiskey. It needs to be something to start things off sweet and easy. And in the case of this Nikka Coffey, they've absolutely had something sweet and easy and not too intimidating, even for somebody who's not really comfortable drinking lots of neat spirits. And then the neat pour as well. It's gone fudgy. It's lovely and fudgy now, fudgy. Like dates. Like a nice, sweet, booze-soaked, perhaps, date. Very easy, approachable whiskey. You would not consider That was 45%, my guess. So where do you go from there? Well, as I said, during our Thanksgiving get-together, my Glenmoe Nectar d'Or was the hit with the whiskey Nervous. Okay, so Nectar d'Or, 43%, a wee bit lighter on ABV. It's going to have some of that, I'm trying to remember, it's Sauterne, isn't it? Nectar d'Or is Sauterne cask, so a wee bit of that kind of sweetness in there from the ex-Sauterne cask. I can see how that would work. I wonder if it keeps your interest, Mike, though. It's quite interesting what works with folk that are just coming in and how quickly they move past that or they stick with it. It'd be interesting to see if you still drink it as well, Mike. So what I would normally do at this point is that you've got them kind of intrigued. They've got this really quite rich and sweet thing on their palate. So I often think that maybe the worst thing you could do is take them right into something like a ex-bourbon cask, like a Glenmorangie 10, a Deanston 12, whatever it may be, something to kind of hit them at that clean, contemporary style of Scotch whisky. You want to keep them intrigued, and you want to keep the hook flavours up. Somebody suggested starting with PT whiskies. There's a reason that you do that, is because you can tell a story. There's a clear flavour in there that they can taste, and they know that it's not all smoke and mirrors, this nosing, and do you smell this, do you taste this? They're probably not going to get much past that chocolate note. So if you start talking about pralines and dusty chocolate and dates and everything that I've been talking about, you're maybe going to lose them a wee bit, but you can put them in a place that they feel like it's okay to shout these things out loud, certainly. I would immediately take them to something that stays rich, but the ABV is low. I would be keen to take them to a very traditional, long-standing style of Scotch whisky and lead them towards a sherry cask. Now, there are lots out there to choose from, so many to choose from. But a good standard would be something like a Glengoyne, especially if you were willing to treat them to something quite mature in Glengoyne's range, or something like the 21. But, you know, even if you stick at the 10 or the 12, or you could go towards something like a nice Aberlour, Glenfarclas. There are lots and lots of choices out there at lower ABVs that you could give them a sherry cask expression. I'm going to choose to substitute all of those tonight because I'm going to use tonight to weave in a different thing that I've been promising folk for a lot of time. What I've got here is Glenturret. This is honestly one of my whiskies of the year. I discovered it very late in the year in 2020, thanks to Stefan Novak. And I've bought a significant amount of this stuff. I've gifted it, and I've been sharing it like a crazy man because this is a very special whiskey to me. So Glenturret's a 2020 Maiden release, the one with the wrinkly label. They never seemed to work out how to get the label on this one very smooth, so it gives it away at a distance, but you can also see that underneath it says 2020 Maiden release. Well, it was £65, so I stepped back at £65 for a 12-year-old whiskey. But then as I tried it and I got into it, I realised that judging it by its age statement, as we often do, we have to judge whiskies by their price tag. And I spoke about that a lot at the start of this year. A lot of you have discovered Glenturret 2020 Maiden release as well. And the feedback is generally that once you get past that £65 for a 12-year-old whiskey and realise it's £65 that's for a whiskey that's peerless, tell me another whiskey like Glenturret's Maiden release for £65 that will give you that. It's an incredible prospect, and there's still some left out there. You can still pick it up. But here we have the 2021 release. Now, it looks almost identical in color. If you stare at it for long enough, I've got a full bottle of the old one as well. If you stare at it for long enough, you could maybe convince yourself that the older one is ever so slightly darker. But really, the colour is almost identical, and we can appreciate the colour. Why? Well, because they tell us that it's natural, and that's important. All the colour in this whiskey is from the cask. So what I'd like to do is, now this comparison isn't scientific. I'm not going to open a new old bottle. I'm going to pour from a bottle that's been open, actually not that long, only a couple of weeks. I do get through this stuff. I love to share it too. So I'll pour a wee bit of my 2020 maiden release. And I'll pour a wee bit. Nice. Does it glug? Not really. It's not a gluggy bottle. And I'll pour a wee bit of the 2021. This is 2020 in this glass, the 2021 here. Interestingly, in the UK, the new version, the price has changed. It's £5 cheaper. That's nice. It's encouraging. Because it's not about, oh, it's cheaper, is it less quality or anything. Having the confidence to drop your price is wonderful. It does not tell me anything. Do not read into this that it may be that there's less overaged stock or something in it, but forget about all of that. Taste it. Taste it. That's what we're going to do. So the 2020, it's an amazing example of a more traditional sherry cask style of whiskey. So instead of being all kind of ripe, rounded, really juicy, ripe fruit, this makes you think textures and spice and old leather. All the fruit in this is dried. All the fruit in this is red, dark fruits. There's occasional hints of fresher things like super ripe melon, aromatic melon like Galley or cantaloupe. Maybe like a booze-soaked melon. And there's wood, there's sandalwood. Lovely sandalwood, fresh sawn and leather. And all those other old sherry cask tropes. But they're not tropes because they're in this glass. Maybe even a wee bit tonight for the first time, just because I'm playing with it. Caramelized, salted or roasted peanut. And a honey nut grain thing as well. And here's the killer for me on this one is the texture. I'll never forget the texture of the first time I had it. The ABV, the sherry cask, the European oak. I don't know if it's all European oak, but it's certainly European oak forward because you've got that texture. You've got that spice. You've got that slight tannic note, it's in check. It communicates very well with the palate to let you know that it's sherry cask whiskey. Slightly drying, but not too much. Long finish, spiced on the finish. Not pepper spices and things. Think nutmeg. Think a generous dollop of nutmeg. Cinnamon. Those bacon spices. The finish is long. Excellent whiskey. Have loved my time with it. If anybody's gone out and spent their money on Glenturret maiden release and they're not happy with it, I've yet to hear from them. Gordon Dundas is saying, great dram, that 12-year-old, love sherry casks, as you know. Well, that was the whole story about Tamdhu, the tasting that you missed, Gordon, that you were supposed to host out there. The story of the sherry cask, the story of European oak and American oak and all that thing. If anybody wants to learn more about that, just go back to the vPub called The Sherry Cask that Gordon Dundas and I did together. Probably going back 2 years now, Gordon. But I remember you specifically shared cask samples of exclusively American oak and European oak with me to talk about that very concept. I'm glad you're enjoying the Glenturret too. Graham Young saying, I think that's the one you brought on our trip that day in October. The bottle I bought, absolutely, Graham, this is the bottle I bought with you when we were up at Glenturret, my friend. Absolutely, and you picked up the 15-year-old as well. Whiskey is saying, glugging bottle brings me to Pulteney. Their Pentland Skerries expression. And the Purple Tube has been a decent and affordable sherry matured option. That's not one I've tried, Roland. Nice recommendation. And JG is saying, what are some of the flavour note differences between American and European oak? For me, American oak is much riper, much more juicy, sweet fruit, rounder. And you can often, where you're drawn to kind of more tannic spices and things on European oak, you're drawn to more kind of maybe some nice fruit tea, black tea notes, juicier, fruitier, even some kind of more caramelly type notes. So if you want to compare, a great example would be comparing something like this to an RN18, for example. An RN18 to me is very reminiscent of American oak maturation, much juicier. Texture's different. It's much softer and rounder on the palate, much more. They're both quite viscous, but where the European oak can be drying, the American oak one can be a sweeter, rounder, almost more kind of gloopy experience. You can tell I'm not a taster, right? I'm doing the very best I can to try and get it across to you. I hope that makes some sense, JG. And Matthew Edgeworth is saying that Glenturret is a good case of judging a book by its cover. One I'd probably overlook on a shelf, but on your recommendation, I must look for a bottle. Matthew, I don't think you will be disappointed when you try it. And if you're not sure what to make of it, here's the thing. Pick up any other whiskey of its type, of its style, for the same price point. And I think you won't regret having that Glenturret 12. I think it's a wonderful wee whiskey. Let's put our nose in the 2021 release and see how much of a difference we can get. So 2020. Okay. Wow. Well, okay, so I was expecting, based on feedback from other people that have tried it, I was expecting quite a step change. A wee bit. So you know that date thing I was talking about on the Nikka earlier? I'm getting dates, so it's like kind of, this is more plummy, this is kind of maybe a wee bit more fruity. Jam, think cooked fruits like jam and things. But remarkably, all the things that's in that 2020 are still here. The sandalwood is there. It's fresher. It's maybe fresher. Aye, okay. Now, bear in mind that the 2020 release has been open for a wee while. This one's freshly open tonight. But it's been sitting here settled for weeks. It's not been freshly delivered. This is a settled whiskey. I've just opened it tonight. But this is fresher whiskey, slightly fresher. So where you're thinking of kind of, it makes you think of old things like maybe leather chairs and books, and it's not dank and dunnage and dusty, but it maybe gives you a suggestion of some older things. This is less so. This will be a bit more fruity. Jam is an excellent note. I think every time I go back and I'm getting some jam, sweet jam, cooked fruits. Quite resinous. Okay, no, I was looking for it to be sweeter and easier. But no, it's still got maybe just, it's not quite as amped maybe. It's maybe just a wee bit more in check. It's delicious. It's fantastic. It's still got the kind of, the texture thing, the spices, the nutmeg, the cinnamon thing. It's got the sandalwood thing. There's maybe a wee bit more okay. But that is remarkably similar. It's very, very good. This is a very honest, very close re-release. Yongo's bought my wee dram. Thank you very much. Saying cheers. Thanks to you, Yongo. Thank you for your dram, my friend. Thank you. And Okawami's bought one as well to say thank you for this Glenturret 12 comparison. Cheers, and thanks for recommending the 2020. I love it. I'm very, very glad that you found it, Okawami, and I'm glad that you are loving it. I do too. I get through far too much of it, but I would like to reiterate that I do share a lot of it. You know, I'm going to go so far to say that on normal given nights, maybe if I'm left in quiet peace, I could pick these apart. On normal given nights, somebody could pour me either of these, and I would be very, very happy and not be able to tell, guaranteed to be able to tell either. This is very close to me. This is a wee bit, this tastes like it might be a nudge younger. I could be literally convincing myself of that. This is gorgeous whiskey. The texture is still there, that lovely velvety texture. Still a very rich whiskey. I still cannot think of another whiskey. This is now £60 in the UK. It's even better value. I can't think of another whiskey that could touch this experience for that price. What I'd like to try it against is maybe something like a Glenfarclas 15 and a couple of other whiskies out there that would maybe be able to do something, but this is still, in my book, this is still peerless. I am very happy about this. So we're sitting there with our, we haven't done this exercise with our friend who's sitting across the table from us, and we're trying to evangelize him into the delights of whiskey. But what we've been able to do here with either of these whiskies is to give them something really rich and to talk to them about trying to vocalize and articulate any kind of flavors or aromas that they're getting and make them know that they're in a safe place to talk about that and nothing is ridiculous. So maybe some nice, there's a confectionery in the UK called Cola Cubes. It's a very nostalgic thing for me. There's a maybe a wee Cola Cube thing in this. Not cola and not Coca-Cola, but that flavor of, so maybe a vanilla, but kind of red, or I don't know, like a boiled sweet. But it's all there. It's all in check. Gonna check out for tonight, folk. Cheers, Roy. Speak to you soon, buddy. Whiskey Novice Jim. We need to get in touch and work out our plans for a couple of weeks' time, my friend. I hope to be able to involve you in some of the shenanigans and celebrations that we're planning for December. Falsgraph is saying, no matter how safe folks are, it's my experience that notes are incredibly intimidating to novices. Frank, Falsgraph, sorry. I think you're absolutely correct. I think if you start to talk to people about this, that, and the next thing and take them all over the place, it will intimidate. But if you encourage them to say whatever they're getting and say nothing if they're getting nothing, the way you react to that is how you create the same safe space. So if they say, oh, it's quite honey, you say, yeah, fantastic honey. And that's it. That's all you talk about. What you don't want to do is make people feel like this tasting, smelling thing is smoke and mirrors, or make them feel like they can't contribute in any way, because they absolutely can. Some of the best notes I get from a glass of whiskey is from my wife, who doesn't drink whiskey. She occasionally has a sip, but she's fantastic at generalizing a glass in one statement. And you go back and she's very, very, very often right. Helen is saying, rich dark chocolate really brings out those tasting noise in the 2021 release. I can imagine a nice bit of bitter dark chocolate would exactly do that, Helen, would exactly do that. It's also nice at this point to talk to your newcomer a wee bit about the reason for the flavour and the colour in this whiskey that you've just given them is because traditionally sherry casks would have been used to transport sherry bulk to the UK. And the Scotch whisky industry, being, very environmentally responsible and not liking to see anything go to waste, they would have taken these casks and they would have filled the casks with new make spirit. And that eventually defined a style, an interesting style. And, it's quite interesting when you talk to people about tired wood and wood that's been used over and over and over again. And absolutely, we get that. We understand that. But oftentimes when we talk about casks, we just dismiss that statement, don't we? We talk about tired wood. Tired wood. Every single cask has had an incumbent, right? Unless it's a virgin cask. In a first fill, we're going to get a lot of wood interaction. It's still a relatively fresh cask. It's first fill. And it's also going to have a lot of interaction from the previous incumbent, whether that be sherry, bourbon, or whatever else is your choice. But we have to remember that as it's used over time, it's being filled and matured with something else. And the additive and subtractive thing over time means that it's not only a story of taking from the wood, taking from the wood, taking from the wood. There's more to it than that. I think the reason that I love second fill, third fill, especially if it's had a bit of time, is I love the fact that the previous incumbent has been malt whiskey. So it's nice to talk about there being something in a cask before the whiskey. And here you've given them an example of sherry cask and how, depending on the wood that's used, you might want to go down that route. It's a wee bit into the weeds if you talk about different oak types. But if you talk about whatever the cask has been built for and made for, keep it simple, keep it top level. And in this case, sherry. And it brings all of these rich, dark, Christmassy flavours. And that puts you in a very good position to then contrast all of those flavours. And it's at this point I would recommend to you, you bring out something very clean and bright and fresh. If you start with something really light, and I know that people talk about start them with a Glenfiddich 12, a Cardew 12, start them with a... I get that. I get it, understand why. Keep it light, keep it easy. But what we're looking for is to encourage people in is not easy and accessible. It's actually flavour hooks, I believe. In my experience, this has been the most success I've had is when you can give people flavour hooks where they can pour two drinks and nose and taste together and say, wow, these taste different to me. I get it. These taste completely different. There's lots of things you could use for this to bring in the concept of not sherry cask, but ex-bourbon cask. Talk about the 20th century phenomenon of us discovering that through the unions and the coopers back over in the States, negotiating that bourbon barrels used once to guarantee work for them, they ended up defining a style of whiskey in the 20th century that they now have today as American bourbon, straight bourbon whiskey. And we were happy to take their ex-bourbon casks from them. And then that so defined a different take on Scotch whiskey. And we can buy that and enjoy it today. And those of you that hang around the vPub know that it's probably my favourite style of whiskey, ex-bourbon cask. Now, you could use a Glenmorangie 10, you could use a Deanston 12, as I mentioned earlier. There are various ex-bourbon only maturation products out there that you can use. But the one, even though this is higher ABV than I've been talking about tonight, if I'm talking about trying to keep the ABV in check, I'm not just talking about a number on a label, I'm talking about how that ABV behaves. Does it come across as a wee bit hot? So it's really asking you to reach for water? Or is it coming across as just adding a nice wee bit of spice? Deanston 12, especially on the finish, has that lovely white pepper spice. I think that's the ABV. Glenmorangie 10 down at 40%, perhaps 43% where you are, I'm not sure, doesn't have that. So you would be talking about tinned pineapples and, more tropical and vanilla and things in the Glenmorangie 10 and less about the kind of spice. But bourbon cask flavours would typically take you towards the vanillas and the caramels and things that in very bourbon casks, I can get a lot of that. But in refill casks, in the realms of Scotch whiskey, I think it leaves a much lighter footprint. So the vanilla is absolutely here in this. But the toffee and the caramel is much more in the background. This is ever so lightly, delicately spiced. This is fresh and clean. There's even some lovely floral outdoor notes on this. Literally like a clean, fresh breeze. I know it sounds like nonsense, but the people that know what I'm getting at would potentially agree. Oak, yes, but not thick resinous oak, like clean, polished wood maybe. Everything is brighter here and cleaner here. And the one I'm holding, the one I love dearly, as you all very well know, is Glencadam's 10-year-old. Now, you could talk to them about unchill filtered and natural colour and all of these things, but I really don't think that you want to kind of drive too much of the discussion there at that point in time. I think what you want to talk about here is picking it up alongside your sherry cask and your bourbon cask, and you can talk to them about the colour, and you can honestly talk to them about the colour. Nothing has been concocted or contrived here. All of the colour has been derived from the wood. And you can tell them that this is from ex-bourbon, maybe refill, and this is obviously from much more heavy use of rich sherry casks. And nose one backwards and forwards, my goodness, just putting this is a big hit of leather and dark honey, not light honey, but thick, good quality honey. Medicinal honey. And then the other one, it's incredible to do that. It just brings this almost brings an effervescence out of this one. Fresh and clean. Now, it may be that they're deciding preferences. I like one over the other. I prefer this one to that one. Whatever it may be, it doesn't matter. What you want them to focus on with this wee exercise here is, as somebody's already mentioned, the contrasts. And the story you tell here is one of casks, regions, all of these things. You can go in any direction that you want, but tell the story to illustrate why. Because there's going to be a punchline at the end of this that's going to amaze them. Lemon suddenly comes into the mix now, fresh, a nice zesty hit, light spice on the palate. Love this style of whiskey, absolutely love it. Very clean, very easy, ridiculously viscous and nicely textured for a 10-year-old. Just no faults, nothing to complain about whatsoever. No spiritiness, no oddness, the only way you could be negative about this whiskey, honestly, is if you didn't like the style, or if you were one of these people who were looking for interesting faults or interesting. This is a very well put together 10-year-old whiskey. It's incredible, very, very good. A very, very light, solid representation of the Highland style, or if you want to talk about such a thing, a generic thing like a Highland style. Fantastic stuff, really fantastic. Hay cut grass, says Ben. Whiskey with Molly Ben is saying hay cut grass and vanilla on the Glencadam 10. That's the outdoor breeze thing, isn't it? The hay, the cut grass, absolutely. For me, there's something floral. There's a blossom of some description as well. Very outdoorsy, definitely, Ben. And vanilla, clean vanilla. Now that I've tasted a wee bit, if I go back in, I'm finding some lemon oil and things. Lovely. Kevin Grant is saying, really enjoying the night so far, but I'm going to have to hit the hay, says Kevin Grant. Says cousin Kevin, long few days has caught up with me. I finish the rest of the vPub tomorrow. Slant your cousin Kevin. I hope to see you over. I will see you over Christmas, buddy. If that doesn't happen, it'll need to be very strange circumstances once more. I know the shifts are hard. Kevin's a policeman these days. I know those shifts can be difficult for him. You're still putting out your content on video. My friend over on YouTube, Kevin Grant on Whiskey. My cousin Kevin. I look forward to seeing you over the holidays, my friend. Thanks for dropping by. And that's a great saying. Great Glencadam tasting last night with Ian. Highly recommend the single cask 15-year-old Glencadam from Inverurie Whiskey Shop. Oh, a single cask 15. And wow. Also, the Oloroso 19 and Newport 17 are stunning. Well, what we're seeing with Ian Forteeth is he's able to bring his own style, put his own imprint on Glencadam, because he's involved in what gets bottled now. Ian Forteeth And if you ever doubt his passion, go along to, as Alistair Gray's talking about, go along to an Ian Forteith tasting, and there's no doubt over his passion. It's fantastic to hear how excited he is to talk about whiskey. His own whiskies, Tom and Till, Old Ballantrae, and of course Glencadam. But give him a dram of something nice, and he'll show his passion for any whiskey at all. Sandy McDonald's saying, going south to Glasgow on Saturday via Glenturret and then Glengoyne to get a teapot dram. Is a teapot dram worth £120 price tag? Sandy, has it been released at that yet? I think that must be just out today, if that's the announcement. If it stayed at £120, I'm going to give Glengoyne a bit of a reprieve, because I was bracing myself to spit and shout at the price going up. If it's come out £120, which is the same as the previous price, I put them on a naughty step. I've used that phrase a few times for a long time, because the price jumped from 90 to 120. If it's come out at 120 again, and if it's as good, the difficulty is, Sandy, find something else that does that for that money. That's the tricky part. Yes, you can find it, but Glengoyne do a decent job of putting a decent amount of casks together and getting an outturn of typically around 3,000 bottles. So it's a decent outturn that most of us can get our hands on without fighting each other's to death over it. So then you look at it and say, maybe it'll go on the Christmas list, right? But in the past, Glengoyne teapot was a bit cheaper than that. It was 90 for a couple of years and a bit cheaper before. So it was at the point that when you're getting close to the end of the bottle, you just go out and replace it, because it was such a wonderful whiskey to share with people. Very high ABV, typically 58, 59, hovers. I don't think it's broken 60% yet. High ABV, but stunning whiskey, because they agonise over the cask selection for that release. They really do. If they've brought out £120 this year, that's a good thing. I haven't heard, though. Good to see Precarious Dave in as well. I got to hang out with Dave and Neil along with Scott Monroe at the Whiskey Club on Tuesday night. It was fantastic as well. Superb. Good to see you in, Dave. Greg Dyke was saying Glencadam is stunning. Have a few in the cabinet, all stunning. I buy Glencadam blind now. Don't need to try before I buy. I so trust the brand. Matt Brown is saying teapot dram released today. Confirmed it's £120. Thank you, Matt. And thank you, Sandy. It's a buy for me. Yes, it's a buy. £120. That settles my anxiety a wee bit. Where in the past I might have bought one or two, I'll buy one. But I would be interested to hear what you guys think of it as well. Jed Smith is saying they have indeed maintained the price. Thank you very much, Jed. And Graham Fraser saying a Glencadam virtual tasting with Ian Forteith at the Spirit Embassy for me tomorrow night, including 2 single cask samples. Graham, please give my regards to Ian Forteith as well. What a good guy he is to have in whiskey. Drew from Arizona saying, your wonderful cousin Kevin shared my only taste of teapot with me, Aquaviti, and I'm forever grateful. Kevin is a super generous guy. Don't you find that very much like you, Drew? Whiskey kind of encourages that, or certainly our community definitely does. Whiskey Tutor is saying £120. I thought the last one was 90. Farkless does it for me for much less than that. Farkless 15. Farkless 15, John, far be it for me to, I'm not going to confront the great John Lamond. The last release was £120 as well. That's when they had the jump from 90 to 120, and I didn't buy it. Then I tasted it. Then I tasted it again, and I succumbed, and I went out and I bought it, because I realised that it was tough to get that intensity of flavour at that price point. I agree that Glenfarclas 15 is a stunner at 46% ABV. I think if you were to sip it alongside any of the teapot releases, my favourite has actually been 5 from memory. But any of the teapot releases, it's not that it's wanting, it's just you can clearly see that it's a different creature. But £120 is a lot of money for anybody to spend on whiskey. Absolutely, John. Bill Monteith is saying just to pop in a vPub to buy my friend a dram and get back to work. Catch you all on the replay. Bill, I know you do love it on the replay, my friend. And for you to drop in and buy me a wee dram as well is just wonderful. Thank you so much. And cheers to you, Bill Monteith. Anybody that buys a dram, anybody that joins the Aquaviti Barflies, and anybody, especially all my wonderful people that support me on Patreon, that's how this channel exists. It means that I can buy my own whiskey. I can stay fully independent. I don't rely on anybody for anything, and the words that I say are my own words, and that's a wonderful freedom to have, and it's thanks to you. It also means that the vPub, this live stream, especially for the people like Bill who pick it up on the replay chunk by chunk, don't need to sit through ads. It's never going to be monetized, and you don't need to sit through advertisements. Thank you all very, very much for the support in making such a thing exist. Remaster is saying, hi Roy, quick question. When you're buying nowadays whiskey for yourself, do you buy Moro beer, independent bottlings? Cheers. For me to justify an independent bottling these days, honestly, Russell, I have to be very careful, because most of the whiskey I buy has to be whiskey I can talk about with everyone. So, you know, the internet doesn't know any borders or regional releases or single casks and things like that suddenly become a bit difficult, don't they? Because, you know, who's interested in this lovely single cask that only yielded, you know, 180 bottles? You know, it's not a lot of value to a lot of people. And you'll notice in the recycled reviews that I do as well, there's one coming up. I don't use indies and single casks in the recycled reviews. They don't mean much. So a lot of my collection has stayed towards core range products for that reason. I want to talk about whiskey that everybody can get their hands on. But I do allow myself a wee allowance for indies and oddball things and special things from time to time. I would say right now it's probably about a third is indies and oddball things, and 2/3 at least is core range or more official branded bottlings. Jimmy Legs bought me a wee dram. You star first dram of this 2021 Glenturret is much like, oh, you've got it. You've got it. Jimmy Legs got the maiden release in Nova Scotia. That's amazing. But it's a 2021 Glenturret. Okay, let's see what he says. It's much like Old Macallan, 12-year-old Elegantia from around the year 2000. Do you find the nose better than the palate? I love it all, Jimmy. Glenturret maiden release reminded me of Old Macallan. When I first got into whiskey in 2005, I could go into the supermarket and buy Macallan. Macallan 12 was plentiful. There were even still Macallan 10-year-olds on the shelf too. It was not expensive, and it was actually something that I didn't kind of covet. I put it on there as a good sherry style of whiskey. I kept it as that. And the Fine Oaks eventually came out and things, and I didn't like them quite as much at the time. And eventually, when they switched over to the 1824 series, like so many people, we kind of went, oh my goodness, this isn't. I mean, the rubies and the siennas were amazing, but you know, the gold and the amber was okay, but the gold was certainly a poor reflection of what Macallan used to be, and everybody disconnected, especially when it worked out that certain markets were still getting the age-dated stuff, and it was only us and some other markets that was getting the non-age-statement stuff, purely down to stock dynamics. But the 2020 release, the maiden release from Glenturret, reminded me, maybe a lot of nostalgia in there, but it reminded me a lot of those older Macallans, what that flavour used to be like back when I didn't really understand what made that flavour, honestly speaking. If it's the first dram out the bottle, very similar to mine, Jimmy. I think for me, it's excellent. I think it's excellent. Is that the 2020? No, the 2020 is in this glass with the 1770 stamped on it here. I think it's excellent. Jimmy, I hope that it opens up and it settles nicely for you. I hope you really do come to enjoy that bottle. And consider as you drink it, I don't know how much you paid for it, Jimmy, out there in Nova Scotia, where you would have to go for the same money to get a similar experience, because it's always been the compelling thing for Glenturret for me. Dribs and Drams has bought me a wee dram as well. Good to see you. It's probably Ken that's in tonight. Read that Nadura question I asked on the vPub a few weeks back. I pinged Glenlivet, and it is indeed uncoloured. Should have put that on the bottle. I agree, they should have it on the bottle. And we had the same discussion with somebody else in a more recent vPub as well, that somebody had fed back to say, no, Nadura is indeed naturally coloured, and they had confirmation from Glenlivet. It's nice that you got it too. If you're going to call something Gaelic for natural, it should really be natural. Yash Desai is in. Good to see you, Yash. Are you suddenly blurry, or have I had a dram too many? No, the camera is in a bit of a hiccup. We are having tech issues tonight. Is that helping, Yash? Am I back in clear HD again? That is the first pour out of the bottle, says Jimmy Legg. I think the camera is focusing on the whiskey behind you. Yes, I have noticed that. I have switched my camera on and off tonight. I know what it is, Yash. I'm wearing a black shirt, The camera doesn't like it if I wear black. It seems to be a common thing. Janet NC was saying welcome, is joined the Aquavite Barflies. Janet, thank you very much for your support. Thank you for helping to keep the vPubs ad-free. Whiskey with Molly Ben has bought me a dram as well. Shout out to Buna's David Brody for our earlier tasting of Buna 12 cask strength. What an energy to have in whiskey David Brody is, right? With the Certified Originals group, like Roy, a whiskey evangelist. Absolutely. The guy just oozes Isla life, Bunahaven life whiskey. Fantastic guy. If you want fun, follow David Brody on Twitter. Greg, Watchman999 is in as well. Good to see you, buddy. Peter Lee is here too. Peter, I'm glad you liked my idea for a Barflies bottle. If anybody's interested in the Barflies bottle concept, you need to head over to Patreon for that. But it's a wee idea I came up with to share whiskey with you guys, and it seems to have gone down very, very well. Blair Stevenson is saying, you've been a little blurry all night for me, but I've blamed it on my own internet connection for that one. Hey, no, it's my black shirt and my camera. And chasing the, I need teams to do this without technical hitches. Disappear, saying Aquavite. I was wondering, take sherry cask for example. Are the best of the best scotches matured in casks that were used to mature the best of the best sherry? Disappear is asking. That looks like a new name. Welcome, Disappear. It's nice to have you in. That's a really, really heavily loaded question. And one that I think I don't have the stripes on my sleeve to answer. What I would say is that in my experience, no two sherry casks and no two scotches matured in sherry casks are the same. We're dealing with organic products here, and the interaction between the original incumbent in the wood, the refill and the wood, and how that comes out after time is very, very different. So if you're speaking about general releases and official bottlings, that's gone through the filter of a very skilled blender in order to bring us an official bottling, versus single cask experiences where you can literally potentially taste those types of contrasts. It is interesting. At the Whiskey Club on Tuesday night, I had a 22-year-old lead chick that was fully matured, all 22 years in PX, Pedro Jimenez. Nothing, with exception of the colour of the whiskey, and even then it was a bit light, was what I was expecting. So with PX, you're expecting this really sweet, syrupy style of sherry influence to come through on the whiskey. But this was all soy and balsamic and acidic and sharp and flicked and flashed and changed up on you. And 1 minute it was quite jarring and sour, and the next minute there was sweetness and nuttiness in there. It was an incredible whiskey, but it was an interesting whiskey. It wasn't an incredible whiskey and, oh, I need to have a bottle of this. I don't think I would want to buy a bottle of it. It was compelling whiskey. It was interesting whiskey, like I say, and surprising whiskey. But not if you were into PX and PX was your bag, if that was your style of sherry matured whiskey, I think you would be surprised. And often, if truth be told, Disappear, we don't know the brand of the sherry that was used beforehand. Some distilleries have partnerships, some distilleries disclose who is making and seasoning the casks for them, but often we don't know. Falscraft is saying Disappear has been around for quite a few vPubs, but not connected with you. Fantastic, Disappear. I'm very glad to have you, my friend, and asking cool questions too, even if I can't answer them. So where do we go from there? So we've given them a sweet, rich, easy, approachable opener. We've tried to relax them and get them into the rhythm of neat spirits. We've given them a big, rich sherry cask or something of a sherry cask style and talked to them about how the different styles of Scotch are affected potentially by wood interaction. And we've followed up with a bourbon cask matured whiskey. Here's where I bring out the third piece of the trifecta. Sherry cask, bourbon cask. And quite honestly, anything that's smoky, but the most powerful weapon I've ever had as an ally to me for converting people into Scotch whiskey is Lagavulin 16. Now, as it focuses on the bottle here, what's going to happen is it's going to focus on the background potentially and not me again. Let's see what it's trying to do. Has it got me? Yeah, it's got me. I finished this tonight. Poured the last dram out of my Lagavulin 16. I do go through this. I buy these fairly regularly. I was quite surprised to see that the last one I bought was 2019. 2020 must have been the first year I have not purchased a Lagavulin 16. It's just the amount of whiskey I've got on hand. But this, with the last drop coin on the top, is the last pour. So this will end up in a recycled review of my Lagavulin 16. And what I'm going to do, just for kicks, is I'm going to open this 2019 bottling of Lagavulin 16, see how it compares to this one here, which is, will I be able to tell what this is? Okay, the code looks a bit different there. I'm not sure. If I was to guess, I would say 2017, 2018, but it's certainly an earlier one. See if we've got any difference here, because I can tell you now, if anybody reads Whiskey Fun, Serge Valentin, Serge gave this era of Lagavulin 89 points. 89 points. I've actually poured this into a glass I used earlier for the Nikka. I only just realised that there. This should be fine. And for the 2020 bottling of Lagavulin 16, now remember, yes, it's coloured. Yes, it's chill filtered. Yes, they don't actually mature mostly on the shores of Islay. They bring it to the mainland for maturity. Oh, these things, and oh my goodness. We're speaking to a beginner here, and we're speaking to our hearts, and we're speaking to the experiences that we have with whiskey. And for me, this owes me nothing. I owe this a great debt. Serge gave a 2020 90 points. 90. That's the same as he's giving 28-year-olds and 26-year-olds and 22-year-olds and really exclusive cask strength releases and things. He's given the standard 16 90 points. Now, I don't know how much you trust Serge, how much you read him and things. It's incredible. Look how handsome that bottle is as well. I mean, look at it. You recognize it from 100 paces everywhere. It's just so understated. It's neither retro nor modern. It's not contemporary. It's not old-fashioned. It's just... It's such a perfect ambassador for Scotch whisky. Yes, I wish it was natural. Yes, I wish they wouldn't put caramel in it. I wish they got the colour from the cask only. Yes, wouldn't it be nice if they gave us just a couple of more points ABV and didn't filter it? I understand all of these things. But we also have to understand it in the context of whiskey and where whiskies come from and just see if we can enjoy it or not. It is such... Okay, I just took the lid off this. I wonder if it's because this is wood. Yeah, I'll let that dissipate a wee bit. I think there's a woodiness coming from the coin. Oh, it's just such good whiskey. What comments have I missed here? Peter Lee saying, Aquavite, can you explain what Patreon is? So the reason I am funded, Peter, is all down to Patreon. The people who support me on Patreon, so you go to patreon.com and search for Aquavite. I know I should link it. I should link it underneath every video and things like that. But what you're really doing is asking for funding, asking for money there. It's not easy. So I tend to only mention it from time to time. But I am very fortunate to have over 300 patrons, over 350 now. And they're wonderful people. And I do monthly lock-ins for them. Although I'm delinquent in November. November disappeared without a lock-in. Well, that's not true. I did one in November, but it was October's. So I do monthly lock-ins for them, where it's just a vPub with me hanging out with just them, and it's no theme or anything, just really laid back. And I do write-ups every week. So if I blog inside Patreon. What Patreon does for me is that people go inside Patreon and they sponsor the vPub. They sponsor the content, the videos that I put out, and they can choose to just pay for one video a month or all, or somewhere in between. They can cap it to any amount that they want. And you can join us a lower tier, a Drambassador, or a mid-tier Disciple, or a top-tier Evangelist to support the content and know exactly what you're paying month by month. That is how this channel is funded. That is the reason that it exists. It's the reason that it's not only independent, but I never need to ask for anything. And actually, I'm at the point that for a long time now, if people try to send things for free, we have to have a discussion about thank you, but I can't review it. So don't send it for free. Tell me about it so I can buy it myself. Patreon is a very modern way of funding content. That's what Patreon is. It's how this channel exists in the condition that it is. And Peter, thanks for asking. Sometimes I forget that people don't understand who patrons are and what Patreon is. Greg Unrow is saying, have you noticed a muting or flattening of the Lager 16 as you drew down on the bottle? Yes. I find that generally on any bottle that you're going to keep open, especially lower ABV, for a long time. It will flatten, it will round out, it will soften. I have talked about this at length, Greg, on many, many vPubs over the years. I don't mind that. I quite like seeing how the whiskey changes as it goes down. People that worry about losing the vibrance and the freshness of the whiskey, they maybe gas it or they maybe finish it, or they get to the last part in the bottle and they decant it into a smaller bottle and things. For me, I've got too many bottles and it's too much admin for that. I want to keep it open. And if it changes, I talk about it in recycled reviews. I talk about how the development, if it's of note. So this one has been open for at least a year. I'm going to say even more. I think if I'm honest, there can be no doubt that the bottle I've just opened, even though it's the first pour, has more prickle, it's more alive, it's more vibrant. And this one, it's been sitting out all night, right enough. You remember when I took the coin off, I was getting a wee bit of a kind of woody note, that's gone. But it is a wee bit softer. You could argue maybe a wee bit flatter. But nothing off-putting. And I know that that's because the bottle's been open a long time, or is it just because it's different from this? No. But I can tell you this is a wee bit more muted. Every time you put your nose back in this. So you're thinking about just a wee bit more effervescent, but more communicative, but brighter. And this is richer. Wow. So we sip the old one. Still Lagavulin 16, I love it. I love it. If it was to disappear, I would be very sad. I noticed the prices jumped up recently. It was one of the greatest values in whiskey for a long time, honestly. From a very small distillery too. People talk about, the kind of medicinal and the things, and I get that in some Islas, I get it in some southern Islas, but very rarely. And Lagavulin is always a sweeter, more elegant thing for me. Lagavulin to me is the most elegant of the three Southern Island distilleries. Ardbeg is the sooty one, and Laphroaig is where I get the medicinal. This smells like I've just stuck my face in something that's much more sherry cask. No, it's still soft. Not a lot of prickle, not a lot of peat. Very easy, elegant, elegant, elegant. Slightly drying. Oh, wow. You pour this for your guest, the person that you're trying to evangelize into whiskey. And the story you tell them is that you want to know why it tastes of smoke like it does. It's incidental. It's deliberate these days in the modern context. I've just realised I've got guests in the background waiting to play Is It Speyside, and I've completely forgotten. Give me a thumbs up, Alexander, if you're okay. In a modern context, it's deliberate. The reason it tastes like this is because the barley is malted with smoke. But back in the day, the only fuel that they had would have been peat. And that incidentally imparted its flavour on the barley, which incidentally came through on the distillate. That's why we have this style of whiskey. That's why we have a smoky whiskey and Scotch, and I'm so, so grateful for it. Just missed a dram from somebody, I think. Michael Heslin's bought me a dram. First time I have been able to join live. Great fun. Cheers from New York, Mike. Michael, thank you very much for your dram. Tell me where in New York you are, my friend. I lived there for a wee while and I loved it. Michael, it's lovely to welcome you into the vPub. Cheers for joining live. I think I'm going to enjoy Lagavulin 16 again over the Christmas break. Honestly, I'm enjoying this. So sorry to keep my friend waiting in the background. He's over in Switzerland. And I did agree that I would bring him on a wee bit earlier. I've also got Helen and Andy waiting tonight as well, but we'll play a wee game at a visit Speyside with them a bit later on. I'll tell you the rules once I welcome in my friend here who's been waiting so patiently for me. Alexander, if you're good to come in, good to see you, my friend. Good to see you, buddy. How are you?
Good, thank you. And don't worry about it. It doesn't matter.
Yes, I did. I think I did suggest that after the Glenturrets, I would bring you in, but I've since done the Glencadam and the Lagavulin and get carried away. And it was only some motion down on the left-hand side there that I realised I remembered I had people in. How unprofessional of me, Alexander. It's nice to have you in. Now, what's the name that you go? What's your handle under?
Hans Waldmann. Or
Hans Waldmann.
So
anybody who's never heard the name Alexander before, it's because he's Hans Waldmann. And we've talked about the story and the figurehead that he was in Swiss culture, right? Where you got that name from. But you've been on here before. I recognize your smiling face. You've played this game before, right?
Yes, on a Patreon, on a Sunday lock-in.
That was only on a lock-in, so this is your first public one?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, remind me then, Alexander, did you manage to win one of these?
I did. I was a bit mean by choosing the Aaron Port cask, and you didn't get
okay. There. You can be forgiven. 50% ABV Port cask, right there. One of their cask finishes. That's okay. So everybody that's watching, what's going to happen is either myself or Alexander have a core range product hidden out of sight, and the other one, the sniper, has to ask us a series of select questions in order to guess what that is, of which the target can only answer yes or no in order to guide them. And they've got 10 questions in order to do it. Now, I usually have a countdown to play this game, but I'm out of practice. I'm a bit rusty, so we'll just have to keep score. But do you think that can happen? Do you think we can keep score? You keep score too, okay?
Yeah. And you get the full 10 questions. Don't worry about it.
Sorry?
I think you went down to 9 before the break. 9 questions. I think we can go back to 10.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, I started to get handicapped. Well, maybe that's the reason that I gave it a break for so long, because I didn't like the fact I was handicapped and I wanted to reset it, and a break was an excuse. But no, that's not true. The reason I gave it a break is because I realised that we can only play it with core range whiskies. It has to be core range product. So, we were running out of core range product. And I just kind of stepped back for a wee while to kind of give it and see how many people asked. But so many people have been asked. Jimmy Legg even suggested that some of the new patrons and new supporters get invited in to play a wee game of Visit Speyside, and it was a good idea. And that was the final straw. I had to kind of bring it back. So it seems fitting to bring it back for December. So the only thing to ask then, Alexander, who's going to be the sniper and who's going to be the target tonight?
Yeah, I'm gonna choose the easy route and let you guess.
Okay, so I have 10 questions to guess a core range single malt Scotch whiskey. Yes, that you have hidden. I'll ask you at the outset, this is not one of my 10 questions. Have you been sneaky tonight, or are you playing a bit more straight tonight?
I'm playing straight.
Okay, I was looking for a poker face.
I also thought since I'm the first one, I changed. I had a different one planned, but I'm going to go a bit easier.
No problem. Let's do the very best we can, okay, Alexander? You keep count, and I'll do my very best to do the same
thing. I even have my trusting app to be sure that I can answer the Dalwhinnie question.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. You handicap yourself, says Jimmy Legg. We didn't ask you to. That's right. I did do it to myself, Jimmy. And I didn't mind it. At all. I'd actually forgotten that I'd even done it. Alexander has just reminded me tonight. Right, Alexander, I'm going to start asking questions, and we have to try and work out what bottle you have. My opening question tonight is going to be, is it a Speyside?
It is not.
Is it a Highland?
It is a Highland.
It is a Highland. Okay, we need the Dalwhinnie question. I should have picked that up, that you picked that map out for the Dalwhinnie. That should have been a giveaway. I'm rusty, Alexander, I'm rusty.
Yeah,
If we use Dalwhinnie as the center of the map, yeah. Is it a Dalwhinnie?
No.
I'm waiting for somebody to have a Dalwhinnie. So
Yeah,
we always
that's-
use the Dalwhinnie to decide, is it north of Dalwhinnie? Is it south of Dalwhinnie? Is it east? Is it west?
Yeah, I should have done that, but then you would have gotten it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you'd done it, I would have just, damn, I can see Helen and Andy running off to get a Dalwhinnie now. Is it north of Dalwhinnie?
It is.
A Highland north of Dalwhinnie. Okay. Does it have an age statement?
It does.
Is it owned by one of the big four, Diageo, Pernod Ricard, Edrington, or Grants?
Nope.
Is it owned by Inverhouse?
Nope.
Oh, wow. I'm struggling now. So what else have we got up there? We've got White and Mackay and Dalmore. We've got Wolfburn up there. We've got Glenmorangie up there. Ooh.
Well, I won't say anything because then I'll help you. So
No, don't help me. Is it a Glenmorangie?
it is not.
I shouldn't have done. Right, okay. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 questions asked. I think I've only got 2 left, Alexander.
No, oh yeah, you have 8 questions asked. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll give you a tip. It's not that far north.
Is it a Tomatin?
No.
Oh dear. Oh my goodness. I've burned too many snipes. I've been going for too many of these. I've missed them. So I've got 1 question left, but not only have I to come up if I'm right. Well, 1 question and the Hurley, I suppose, the 0. Okay. It's not Glenmorangie. It's not Tomatin. Oh, it's not owned by Diageo, so it's not Glenord. Clynelish, not as Diageo. Trying to think what else is up there. It's not that far north, you said. Thank you very much. It's not Wolfburn.
You also never asked the question of, is it a Glen?
Oh.
That would have helped you.
It would have helped me.
Yes. It is a Glen. I'll give you that.
Oh no. Is it on the east?
I won't count that as a question.
No, that is a question. It's on the east. Right. So I just need to guess this now. So it either has to be a Glencadam, could be a Glencadam from Angus Dundee, it could be a Glengarry from Beam Suntory. It could be a Glendronach, could be a Glenglassaw. Brown Foreman. Is it a Glencadam 15?
So close. If you would have gone with the Glendronach.
Oh my goodness. It's my fault. Alexander, it's my fault. I'm rusty. I'd already, as soon as you said north of Dalwhinnie, I had deleted everything east.
That's why I tried to help you.
Oh my goodness. Let's see if I led the lounge. Did anybody get that? Molasses Mike is shouting, is it a Glen? Are you out of practice, sir? Says Jimmy Legg. I think it's a wee bit obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, I see a couple of people guessed it. I don't know who's first.
Graham Fraser said Glendronach 15. Oh my goodness, I'm looking further. Maybe somebody got it before. Glendronach 12, David Owen. Glendronach 15 maybe Graham Fraser has just picked himself up, unless somebody answered before him. If any of my moderators are still in and tuned in. Cadam 18 says Doc McCallan Refining Rare. A Glendronach 15. You picked that because I've fallen out with it. That's why you did that.
Exactly, and because you compared the Glenturret 2020 to this.
Yes.
I thought, oh, okay, I'll give you a bit.
But I didn't compare it in terms of these are similar products. Well, they are similar. I compared it in price point.
Yeah.
And I drank the 2020 release next to the Glendronach, 15, the Revival, and I preferred the Glenturret. And this was back before I was a Glenturret fanboy as I am today. This was back when I was just getting to understand it, and it was better to me in so many ways than the Glendronach 15. This is way before there was any talk of a pivot potentially from Glendronach from Brown-Forman on chill filtration and things like that.
Yeah, this is the old bottle.
You got me tonight, my friend. You got me. You won a coin. You won it publicly. You won it fair and square with a legitimate core range bottling. And it looks like maybe Graham Fraser or somebody else. Ronald is saying, I think it's Graham. Graham Fraser, I think Hellen's wid. If I won, please pass it on to a needy barfly, Roy. Graham, do you already have one? Fantastic, but congratulations, Alexander.
Yeah,
well done, well played. You know,
don't send it to me way too much. You can send it to anybody. I can't think of. I think Callum Muir already got one, but you can
Callum
send it to
Muir.
anyway.
Callum Muir, I think. Well, I don't know if Callum does actually, but so we'll ask. We'll ask. So Callum Muir, okay. But that was fair and square. You won that cleanly and easily. Well done. I'm a wee bit rusty.
That's understandable. That's why I didn't want to play either. So I mean, guess.
No, listen. That's how easy it is, but it's difficult. It's difficult to guess, and especially when you're capable of making mistakes like I am. Listen, buddy, thanks for staying up so late. Are you? Go ahead.
Whiskey with Molly asks, isn't Glendronach a Speyside? I went with the Malt Whiskey Yearbook.
I am on BBC Radio talking about whiskey, and I mentioned that Glendronach was a Speyside. Ben, maybe I've led you, but no, it identifies itself as an Eastern Highlands and as a Highland whiskey. Glenfarclas, Macallan, and others put Highland on the label, but they're absolutely Speyside distilleries. Glendronach identifies as a Highland and is a Highland, as it turns out. Fantastic. Well done, buddy. Well done.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. If you're able to stay to the quiz at the end, I'll look out for you and I'll bring you back in at the quiz at the end. I've only got one more whiskey to share and one more step to this thing. But thanks very much for stepping forward and being brave enough to come on tonight. And well done. Congratulations to you. Alexander, Hans Waldmann. Alexander, cheers to you, my friend. Slancher. Terrific stuff. It's always nice to put faces to names. Obviously, he's been on a lock-in before with patrons, but that's the first time he's been on a public stream. Well done. Callum, you're already got one from Eric Cunliffe. Graham Fraser, yes, I do. Thanks, Roy. He's already got one. And Jimmy Legacy and the Revival is nothing like this Glenturret. I agree. You could put it in the same category of whiskies, but not much more than that. One of the reasons that I stopped this is I realised that maybe the barflies, the people that were actively playing this, started to get a wee bit saturated with the coin, and there was a lot of them, so they were like, oh, well, we want to share this around. Cresimir had got to the point that he had 13, he'd won 13 of these coins, the Sniper King, famously. The Sniper King, he was so good at this game. And he started to generously give them out to other people as well. But it might be that I don't have as much of a churn of an audience as I thought I did, and so many of you already have these things. Listen, I'm happy to send these out to anybody that you allocate them to, so just keep me right. Looks like Callum Muir, if he's got Eric Cunliffe's, he might want a second one. Listen, these are for topping glasses, right? So one isn't enough. If you've got a flight of 4, 5, 6 glasses in front of you, you need to be able to top a few off. And it's more useful than I ever imagined they would be, because when you've got really powerful flavorful whiskies or ones with really strong aroma, smoky whiskies and things, not only does it help you kind of concentrate the aroma in the glass for those, but it stops those aromas kind of just hanging in the air right in front of your face as you try to nose other things. kind of isolates the aromas down. So they do work quite well. Anyway, I've got Helen and Andy in the background, but if Helen and Andy, you give me a wee thumbs up if you're okay. I'll bring you in at the quiz at the end. Is that okay for you? I've only got one more kind of step to go through this. I think it's amazing to take people through the contrasts and that kind of trio of Scotch whisky styles, those bookends, if you like, of really kind of strong, rich, sherry, bold sherry flavours, that really clean, vanilla sweet, often toffee caramel side that a nice bourbon cask can bring. And then bring in the smoke element and say, look, if you know your way around these three styles, these three pockets of Scotch whisky, malt whisky, you're already well on your way. And what's amazing is that those three glasses can give them such deep contrasts. They can taste the hooks. They understand the reason for it tasting smoky, the reason for it tasting vanilla, caramel, and coconut, the reason for it tasting like Christmas fruits and Christmas cake, because you've given them that anecdote, that backstory. You've piqued their curiosity if you've done it well. And maybe you've got them holding their glass up and saying, can I have something else? Can I try another one? What else do you have? And if they've endured this onslaught of bullying, of evangelism, of cajoling, whatever it is, however you do it, I think they've earned something nice. What if you finish the flight, not with a different step, not with going off in a different style of whiskey or complicating things further, but actually finish the flight giving them a reward, giving them something and pouring it and sharing it with a solemnity, with an air of reverence, with an idea that they're really getting something special. Everybody's got a special bottle. 10 years ago, my special bottles were £60, £70. As time's gone on and I've accumulated more and more whiskey and people have bought me treats and I've been able to treat myself to better things, that's inevitably grown. But whatever is special to you, talk to them about why it's special. I've pulled out a different glass as if to elevate the ceremony of the moment, right? And I'm going to reach here for probably one of the treat bottles I've got on the cabinet here. I love this. I love this. And I haven't had much out of it. I opened it recently when we did a fundraiser here. We welcomed some barflies. Amongst them was Whiskey with Molly Ben, Scott Monroe, Sevi was here, Eric Webber was here, and who else am I forgetting? Fraser Thistle, Fraser Richardson. And we came out, and at the end of the night, I said, guys, I want you to have something nice. And that's when I opened this bottle. I tried this before. I tried it at a tasting. This is a bottle of Teaninich. I'm only pouring a wee bit because I only need a wee bit. I'm just demonstrating a point to you tonight. And this is precious liquid to me. This is a Berry Brothers and Rudd 33-year-old Teaninich. 33-year-old is special enough. But what's special about this is that it was 1983. Now, 1983 is probably a year that I remember a lot of where I was and what I was doing. It wasn't a particularly special year, but it was a year of change for me. I can actually remember a lot about 1983 for me. And as you pour this and talk to them about the concept of whiskey, how this thing ends up in a barrel, and it can sit in a barrel for a long, long, long time and change minute by minute, month by month, year by year, into something like this. No vibrance, but utterly seductive. Resinous, lots of tropical fruit. Tropical fruit with a wee bit of lemon and salt. Leather. Honey, clear honey. Old wooden trinket boxes. Velvet lined, leather lined. Something vaguely metallic or saline metallic. Maybe pebbly minerally, no. They might not be able to pick up the complexities in this, but they might. They will know from the path that you've led them. They will know how amazing this is. And when you hand it to them and tell them, you don't need to talk about price. You don't need to talk about the value of the whiskey. Just talk about the provenance. And they will know that they're being treated at the end of the night. Helen is saying 1983 was the year Andy and I met. Lindsay Holman is saying that's what I would think. Interested in the official is it a Speyside opinion from Aquavite. Danny Hebbington is saying I was 10 in 1983 watching Aberdeen beat Real Madrid in the final. What a year. Well done, Danny. Fantastic. Yeah, give them the 35-year-old. I think you're talking about the Brora, Jimmy, right? Falsgraph, your face is blurred. Big plaque is in focus. It's just the way it is tonight. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry for my annoying camera. It's still on autofocus. I can see that it is supposed to be focusing on me, but it's the black shirt thing. And when you do this, and when you're at this moment, you talk to them about all the steps and the flavors that they've been through, and say this to them. Everything that they've tasted tonight, everything, the ingredients are barley and water. That's it. Yes, they've had to add yeast to activate the alcohol. Yes, it's had to spend time in different casks to bring these other flavors. But people are shocked when they realize that whiskey is not flavored. Scotch whiskey, much of the global whiskey brands or whiskey categories are not flavored. People are shocked to hear that it comes from grain and water. And in the case of single malt whiskey, barley and water, that is it. That's compelling, don't you think? They look at this glass and all these flavors and this path that you've taken them down. You've given them some form of comfort to feel like they know a wee bit more about it. And it's all from those simple ingredients. Cheers, everyone. I really do wish I could share that with you. What a privilege. 101 Force Tennis said, I've just bought a bottle of the Anok 24-year-old as a Christmas treat. I hope you love it. I guarantee you that's one of those glasses that each night, sometimes each sip, it changes on you. Wonderfully complex, lovely, great value whiskey, Anok 24. Bennett Fries is saying, Denmark beat England 1-0 at Wembley in 1983. One of my first football memories. It's fantastic, isn't it? And I put it to you that anybody that's alive and functional in 1983, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people drinking whiskey that were not. This is before their time, which is just as compelling. But if you talk to them, a lot of them, like me, are of an age that we can consider what we were doing when this whiskey was laid down, and everything that we've done in between times, waiting until it gets to a point where we can actually put it in a glass and enjoy it. Jimmy, like is saying, Aquavite, I'm enjoying the blurred face. Maybe either have to change the lighting or not have a black t-shirt. Hans Waldmann is saying, I have a 1983 Teaninich from Adelphi. Wow. I think I got to try that one in the same tasting, Alexander. I bet you're loving it. Jimmy Legacy in barley water and thousands of dollars of copper. Yes, that's true. Copper is absolutely a crucial element. Absolutely, Jimmy. Let's bring in my very, very patient guests as well. Andy and Helen. You know them. They're usually commenting in here as Hellswood. They've been on before, but it's always a treat to welcome them in. If you're good guys, I'll bring you straight in and say, how are you doing? Yes, you managed to fit in the screen too. Thank you for being so patient. Thank you for being so patient. And thank you, Helen. I'm just noticing that you're flying the colours. You've got an OG t-shirt there.
Yes.
Oh, and Andy's got a Barfly t-shirt on too. Fantastic, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you for getting into the spirit of it all. Superb. And thank you for being patient and hanging about the background. Now, remind me, I think you've been on more than once in the past, right? Maybe twice?
Yeah, once or twice.
You've done
once
it
or twice
now, haven't we?
Yeah.
And you're collecting these, right? How many do you have?
We've won 2 through the chat, and you gifted us 2, I believe.
Okay, fantastic.
But
So
we've
you've
never
now got
beaten
4.
you
But
yet.
we've never beaten you.
So one more. You've never beaten me.
No.
Tonight is maybe the night. So one more tonight then for a flight of 5 drams, right?
Mhm.
5 sniper coins.
But we've said if we win, it will be going to Denise Lee, Peter's wife.
Oh wow, to Denise.
So
Fantastic.
no pressure.
Well, that's very nice. That's very nice. So I'm actively trying to play in order to take a coin away from Denise. Is that what you're saying now?
Yeah, come on.
Okay. So does that mean am I the target tonight or am I the sniper?
You're the sniper.
Okay, I'm asking again. That means, Andy and Helen, that you have on hand, hidden out of sight, an official core range Scotch single malt whiskey.
We do indeed.
And you know roughly all about, you know who the owners are, you know where it's located geographically, and you know, okay, fantastic. We don't have the countdown on screen. I need to bring that back again if we're going to continue this throughout December. I'll go unpopular. If people enjoy this game, I'll do it. I'll start asking, shall I?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I do a better job than I did with. Is it a Dilwhinnie?
No.
Oh, that's when you go for that's a snipe. Can you imagine if it'd been? I thought if it could. Okay, let's play seriously now. Is it a Speyside?
Nope.
Is it a Highland?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh wow, Highland seems to be tricky. If Dilwhinnie, we know it's not Dilwhinnie now. If Dilwhinnie is the centre point of the Highlands for the sake of this game, is it north of Dilwhinnie?
No.
Nope.
Is it east of Dilwhinnie?
No.
Nope.
Okay, so I'm going to suggest that it's southwest or Western Highlands. Is it owned by one of the big 4, Diageo, Pernod Ricard, Edrington or Grants?
Nope.
Okay. So who do we have? Oban and Talisker. We've got Glengoyne and Loch Lomond. We've got. Okay, is it an island?
Yes.
Ooh. So we've now got Jura. It's not any of the Isla distilleries because it's not a Highland then. If it's an Isla. So we've got Jura, we've got Arran, we've got Rassay. Now is Rassay north of Dilwhinnie? I think it could be Rassay. I'm not sure. I need to think about that. Who else have we got out there? We've got Ardnamurchan, we've got Nicknean. Oh my goodness, there's so much more choice. This is a harder game this year than it was last year, right? Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a new distillery, guys?
No.
No.
It's not new. Is it an Arran?
Yes. That's
Right.
9.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is that 9 questions I've asked? So I've got 2 more. I've got my last question, and then I've got my guess. So I'm going to go out and I'm just going to say, does it have an age statement?
Nope.
So it's a non-aged Arran. I am really up against it now. Could be a lot of things. It could be an Arran quarter cask, the Bothy. It could be the sherry cask. It could be Machrie Moor. Is it Arran Machrie Moor?
Nope.
No.
Oh, Denise, I did this for you. Okay, what do we have? What are you hiding? Oh, Robert Burns. Okay, this is their entry-level product. Bring it to the middle of the camera. Yep. I think it's 40 or 43% ABV, this
43.
one, entry-level strength, isn't it? It
43.
is a single malt. It is core range. Non-age statement from Arran.
Cracking
That's
brand.
an under the radar. Oh, you're happy about that one, aren't you? You're happy about that one. So there you go. So we have a sniper coin heading to Denise Lee in Paisley, right?
Yeah.
Indeed. This place.
And Denise, they won it legitimately, fair and square, a powerful performance. So this is absolutely a worthy. This isn't a gifted coin. This is heading its way to you, to Denise Lee. Fantastic.
That
Superb.
makes up for my smokehead.
No, that's good. And actually, you know, not tonight, but in the past, I've considered kind of outliers like that. There are these kind of releases out there that are official, they are part of the core range, and could potentially trip me up. So that was nice. Do you enjoy that, Robert Burns?
I love it. We bought it for Fraser for his birthday last year. His birthday's Burns night. And we just thought it would be a nice, because he's obviously new on his journey. So we thought it would be a nice bottle for him to have. And he said, oh, this is really good. You want to try this? So I think we've gone through about 3 bottles so far. It's quite a nice, easy drinking.
But it's about £30, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this last bottle we paid £19 for on Amazon.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, so it's available. It's malt whiskey. Yes, it's non-age statement. It's relatively young. Can't remember the last time I tried it, but that's fantastic. You guys are good, and I know that you've been part of the evangelism behind the Glasshouse blend, Lagavulin Glasshouse blended Scotch whiskey, which is amazing. I can't talk too much about it because it's still part of the blind challenge that happened as part of the fundraiser. Andrew Pears and Tom Scaramuzza are doing their blind challenge together, so I don't want to give too much away, but there'll be more to talk about with that Glasshouse in the future. When we work together as a community, what happens? We dig out the wee treasures, the things, the good quality experiences for not too much money.
Indeed.
Fantastic, guys. Helen and Andy, it's always nice to see your faces. It's always nice to have you in here. I'm very, very grateful for your support. Much like our friend in Nova Scotia, Jimmy Legg, I do find that the evenings that you're not here, you are missed. I can feel that you're not hanging out.
It's not a proper Thursday without being in the vPub.
That's right. That's how I feel. That's definitely how I feel. I'm glad you feel the same way. Are you able to hang out around a wee bit longer for the quiz at the end?
Indeed.
Definitely.
Fantastic, guys. Well done. Absolutely superb performance. I've been up against the rope tonight and I've not managed to get myself back off them. Beaten twice. I need to go into practice. I need to get my face back in books again. And maybe I'll do a wee bit better next week. But thanks for stepping up tonight. And I'll see you in a few minutes for a wee game of quiz at the end. Cheers, Helen. Cheers, Andy.
Cheers.
Slange to you both.
Slange.
I'll bring you both back in a wee minute alongside Alexander. Fantastic, superb. So there you go. Beaten soundly tonight. I didn't even get close. I guessed Glencadam with Alexander, and I got to the right distillery with Helen and Andy, but I didn't have enough guesses in my back pocket in order to pull the right one in. Let's see who else managed to get it in the chat. Can we see? Denise is jumping about. Fantastic, Denise. I'm glad that she's pleased. That's amazing. Look at these great guesses coming in. And what Ben is saying, Rassie is actually north of Dalwhinnie. Fantastic. So yes, with all these new distilleries, I've got some swatting to do as well. If this game is going to come back, I need to get back into training because, as you can see, I'm a wee bit out of practice. Graham Fraser saying, you could have given Denise my coin, but I'll leave it up to you to decide, Roy. No, Denise has got her coin. It's been won. Currently, I've got a coin from Alexander going to Callum Muir, unless I get that different instruction. And I've got Helen and Andy's coin going to Denise. Graham Fraser saying, you could have given Denise, sorry, I picked that one up, Graham, I just did. Jimmy Legg is saying, no shame there, Roy. That was a tough one. And I saw you mentioning, Jimmy, as well, that it's absolutely much tougher. Consider all the new distilleries that's come on, even in the last year. We've got Nick Nean releasing product in the Western Highlands alongside Ardnamurchan. We've got Rassie. We've got Lag is on the cards as well. They've not got anything out yet, but they're coming in from the Western Highlands. We've got Ardnahoe on the way too. They've just celebrated 3 years. It's amazing. That's just on the West Coast. You look to Fife, all the explosion of distilleries in the Fife, and in the lowlands, elsewhere in the lowlands outside of Fife. If you look all over the place, there's more and more distilleries. And as they start to release product, that game will get harder. So maybe there's an argument that it should come back and we might need to tweak it or refine it over time. Scott Pascoe, my friend, thank you so much for supporting. I know you're already a supporter inside Patreon. It's wonderful to have you here supporting as an Aquavitae Barfly 2. I hope you have some fun with all those emojis that you unlock as being a Barfly 2. Roy emojis, Glencadam emojis, even a Ralphie emoji for now. I don't know how long the Ralphie one is going to stay, right up until Ralphie complains, I suppose. Fantastic stuff. Jeremy Miller is saying, nothing like a smooth transition from an independent bottle of Craigellachie 22 and now pouring a Kirkland Costco Isla single malt 50%. That's how we roll here, lol. Fantastic. And Whiskey with Molly, Ben is saying, have you got the new Ardbeg 8? Thoughts? I have it. For discussion, Ardbeg 8-year-old I have. Ben, I don't know how to fit it in. I don't know what context to do that in. It might be a lock-in or something. I open that and enjoy it with patrons, but it's here. It's just not opened yet, my friend. I know some people would be keen to hear what I think about that one. I picked it up. Doc managed to source one for me at a very good price when I was over in Germany. The Continentals seem to get lots of things keenly priced. And Graham Youngson, welcome back to the game. You're such a great host, Roy. No, I got a doing tonight, though. I'm a better host tonight than I am playing the game, that's for sure, Graham. But thank you very much for your virtual drama friend, Graham Young, who I got to hang out with earlier this year, and what a pleasure that was. And Ronald is saying, I think no one got it before it was revealed. Oh, wow. And Owen Jean is saying, no, Rob Halford won that one, Aquavitae. So Rob Halford was, it doesn't matter if it's after or before I guess it. Here are the emojis coming in, the Roy head and the Ralphie head. Jimmy Legg is saying, although the last time I was on, you looked to trip me up with Ardnamurch and Aquavitae. It didn't work. Jimmy's got a spreadsheet. You keep that to yourself, Jimmy. That spreadsheet could detonate the whole dynamic of the game for everybody. That has to be kept under lock and key. Donner Pass Whiskey saying, Compass Box Spice Tree is a favourite hold dram that could pull someone into whiskey. I agree with that fully. Even at 46% ABV, there are some lower ABV Compass Boxes out there. But Spice Tree at 46% ABV is very lovely and very flavourful too. And Helen is saying, think Rob Halford got in the chat. Fantastic. So we've got Rob Halford. And I think it was Graham Fraser that got, but he wanted to give it to someone else, didn't he? I'll check with Graham who's donated his coin to as well. Fantastic. Okay. Thank you all for hanging out with me until this time of night. I'm going to pull my guests back in and we can put the wheels on the quiz at the end. We always finish with a quiz. I know that the viewership drops. Not everybody's into a quiz, but it's a good fun quiz. Tends to start quite easy, tends to get crunchy from the middle onwards, but it's just about having fun. You don't need to share scores. I'll bring you guys in if you're ready. Alexander, Helen and Andy, fantastic. I'll bring you straight in. You only need to share your scores if you want to. It's fully optional. You're just playing for fun. These guys know. Helen and Andy, watch out for them. They always play a strong game. And you have your ABC pieces of paper handy, do you, everyone? Superb, superb. I don't know if that doesn't work. That has to happen. There we go. So we can all see you together. So it's fully optional. You only share your scores if you want to. It's multiple choice. There's always an A, B, and C. The idea of these questions are, yes, even the tricky ones are meant to raise or pique curiosity and make you think about things a wee bit. What's your typical score, Alexander? You normally hit a pass mark, don't you? Oh, muted. You are muted.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, I usually pass, but I'm happy when I get 7 or 8.
Fantastic. So that's your target tonight, a 7.
Yeah, yeah. I hope so.
Helen and Andy, you're not usually that easy. You're looking for an 8 or a 9 or a 10 every night, aren't you?
Try.
Yeah, but the pressure's on when we're actually live, you know.
Yeah, I think the last time we were live, we got something like 6 or 7, didn't we?
So what's your target tonight? 7?
Yeah, 7 would be good.
Fantastic.
I'll be happy with a pass.
Then I'll go down to 6.
Terrific. Molasses Mike is saying, I hear it's an easy quiz. It is, Mike. Right up until question 5. David Ron is saying, actually missed the Is It a Speyside? Glad it's back. Fantastic. And Ronald is saying, me. Is that because you want a game of Is It a Speyside, Ronald? Or is it to do with the quiz? Fantastic. Good luck, everybody. 10 questions. Hey, let's go on with number 1. I'm doing this a new way tonight. It's actually a new feature, so I can feed it straight in. I don't need a second feed, so let's see if this works. Question 1. Typically, Nikka's peated Japanese malt bears which brand? A. Miyagikyo, B. Hakushu or Hakushu, C. Yoichi. Which of those single malt brands is representative, typically, not exclusively, but of Nikka's peated Japanese malt? Rossford is saying, yes, multiple guests. Fantastic. Good to see you in. Good to see you here, Rossford. Good to see you here, Tom. Okay, guys, I think we'll go through this quite quickly. Lift up your pieces of paper after 3, 2, 1. There we go. Both absolutely convinced. Are you sure? It's Yoichi. Okay, the lounge absolutely think that it's Yoichi. I can tell you that Miyagikyo is a Nikka brand, but it tends to be unpeated, not exclusively so. Hakushu is peated, but it's owned by Beam Suntory, which means that, yes, Yoichi is absolutely right. 1 out of 1 for both of you. Well done. Fantastic.
Good
For all
start.
3 of you, I should say. Question 2. The Whiskey Exchange has just named its Whiskey of the Year 2022. They're not naming their year for this last year. They're naming the year for next year, I suppose, because they're retailers, I guess. What is it? What have they named as Whiskey of the Year? Is it A, Deanston 18-year-old, B, Cotswolds Single Malt, or C, Bunnahabhain Sturacher? Which of those 3 malt whiskies, all worthy, I think, honestly speaking, I like all of these whiskies, but which one has the Whiskey Exchange decided this is going to be their Whiskey of the Year 2022? Now, I imagine they would have had to speak to the supplier, say, can you get enough of this to us? And I was a wee bit worried about pricing, but when I went on to check the price, they were fair with their pricing. So let's after 3, 2, 1, Andy, Helen, Alexander. A, you know this for sure. You picked this up. You saw this, yes?
No, I'm guessing.
Oh, you're guessing. Well done. Well
I just
done,
went with the one I liked the best. So
you guys saw it today, yes? Or you saw it this week announced? Oh, is Helen and Andy suddenly muted or just being quiet?
Nope, we're still here.
Oh, fantastic, being quiet. And the lounge, absolutely, with very few people getting that wrong. A couple of people did maybe have a wee banana skin there, but not too many. Well done, everybody. It is absolutely Deanston's 18-year-old and thoroughly well deserved. It is too. If you wanted to be a wee bit decadent with your friends that you're evangelizing to over the course of the holidays, the 18-year-old Deanston would be a good example of a much more fresher first fill bourbon influence in there too for the bourbon cask entry. Question 3. Which of these is a Compass Box release? Which of these is from Compass Box? A, Spice House, B, Orchard Tree, or C, Oak Cross? I think I'm being kind. Am I lulling you into a false sense of security? Yes. Compass Box Spice House, Compass Box Orchard Tree, Compass Box Oak Cross. Fantastic. After 3, 2, 1. Alexander's going for C, and Helen and Andy's both going for C. The lounge is absolutely unequivocal. Oh, with very few departures. Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying, ha, 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 C. I put a banana skin in there, yes, because they all sound theoretically like Compass Box releases, but obviously Spice Tree is the release, the Orchard House, and Oak Cross. Oak Cross is a 43% release from them, but absolutely the one that you're looking for here is C, Oak Cross. So a minor banana skin, but not much. I think it was quite an easy one. Question 4. Which Lowland distillery is said to be the brainchild of a former golf caddy who raised funds from golfing contacts? Now, he saw a gap. He wanted to have a distillery nearby him, and he was caddying for all these well-heeled people, and he had collected business cards over a long time, and he started to phone them up and say, I've got an idea for a business. And this is how he started to raise funds for this distillery. So the story goes. Is it A, Kings Barnes? Is it B, Annandale? Or C, Strathern? Which of those distilleries has that story behind it? Quite interesting, don't you think?
Indeed. Trump.
Are you guessing?
Yeah, I think
yes.
we'll be on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, after 3 then, 2, 1, guess away. A and a B. Oh, the first switch that we see.
I guess I'll be wrong on that one.
Unfortunately, Alexander, yes. Douglas Clement is the golf caddy. It's now owned by Wheems, but the story goes that it was the brainchild of Douglas Clement, and some of the funding in order to found Kingsbarns Distillery came from his rather entrepreneur idea, right, of phoning up these people that he'd networked with as a caddy over the years. If that's a true story, I think it's a cool story, don't you think?
Genius. It's genius.
Yeah. Terrific stuff. So that's Kingsbarns. And I have to tell you that Kingsbarns, the last couple of releases I've had from them, they're releasing some pretty good stuff too. Question 5. Now, this has a wee bit of an asshat here, hence the icon, but there's also a Barflies icon there as well. If you're a member of the Barflies group on Facebook, you might be helped a wee bit for this one. But I'm going to ask you to look at this picture here. I don't want you to tell me what distillery it is, but instead I want you to tell me who are the owners of this Speyside distillery. Is it A, John Dewar and Sons, Bacardi, B, Inverhouse, otherwise known as Thai Beverage, or is it C, White and Mackay in Parador? Now, the reason that I labour the questions here and speak them out instead of just letting you read them or read them quickly is because I'm very appreciative to everybody that listens to this podcast style on the replay, and it means that they can play along as well. Unfortunately, this is the one exception in the quiz because they need to see the image. But thank you for listening in on the replay regardless. Helen and Andy, did you see this on the Barflies group earlier this week from Graham Fraser?
Missed that one. No.
Yeah, missed it.
Okay, it wasn't this image. It wasn't this exact picture. It was a different angle. So you need to now know, that's why it's an ASAT question. You need to know the distillery and you need to know the owner. So it looks like you might be guessing here after 3, 2, 1. White and Mackay. You both think we're looking at a White and Mackay distillery. What are you thinking it is, guys?
It's not
No idea.
Dalmore. I don't think so.
No, it's not Dalmore. It's actually a Speyside distillery, it says in the question. So we're actually looking at Altmore, which is one of Dewar's distilleries. A lot of people say, it's not the most attractive building. Depending on the angle that you see of this, I think it's, given the age, the styling and things, it's not a typical Scotch kind of cottage style distillery. But I don't think it's the ugliest. And it's actually, I think it's all uniform white now instead of being kind of grey, blue and white. Everything is pretty much uniform white now. It looks even better nowadays. But we're actually looking at Altmore. Wonder if Graham Fraser is in. I'm sure that he would have picked that one, no problem. Question 6, everyone. Now it's going to start getting a wee bit crunchy and rocky underfoot. I think you guys have only slipped up once, Helen and Andy. And Alexander, you've slipped up twice so far. You need 2 for a pass mark, Alexander. Helen and Andy only 1, I think. What might you find written on the label of Glencadam 15-year-old? Glencadam 15-year-old. Is it A, the rather delicate, B, the rather dignified, or C, the rather polished? Andy's squirreling around looking for his bottle of Glencadam 15.
No, we haven't got.
It's not one you've got?
No.
Oh, it's a good one. It's a good one. So you're guessing here, guys. You're guessing here. This is a banana skin. Alexander, are you guessing too?
I think it's between, I'm pretty sure that it's between 2, but I have to guess between those 2.
50-50 is better than 33%, right?
Yeah.
So let's go.
The same.
3, 2, 1. A, the rather delicate. A, the rather delicate. Well, let me hold up this bottle of Glencadam and show you written up the top here. I'll try and get it to focus. Come on, little camera that's causing me problems tonight. You'd be lazy. Yeah, it's going to focus, isn't it? Come on. No, that's incredible, isn't it? I'm glad lots of people listen to this. There you go. The rather delicate.
Is it on it's on the 10?
No, but that's a 10-year-old.
Fuck.
Oh, that's
The
sneaky.
15-year-old is rather dignified. The 18-year-old is rather polished. And the 21-year-old is the exquisite or something. They've got a different tagline for each of their releases, which rather quite tickles me. I think it's quite cool. So sorry to get you excited and then rip the rug out from under your feet. Sorry, guys. Whiskey with Molly on 6 out of 6. Jason McDonald on 6 as well. Fantastic. Well done, everyone. It's on Jimmy Paul. Looks like a new name on 6 out of 6. And Whiskey Radar 6 out of 6. And Russ Fudd Tom is saying, crap. Question 7. Bowmore's famous 1964 Black Bowmore, the legend of Black Bowmore, was first launched as a 29-year-old in 1993 at the ludicrous price of, this is at the time, A, around £100 was the retail, B, around £500 was the retail, or C, around £1,000. Now, today, Black Bowmores go for tens of thousands of pounds. They are one of these whiskies that are amongst the most legendary of all. There are very few whiskies that can challenge Macallan's for standing, but Black Bowmore certainly is one of those. But when it was launched in 1993 as a 21-year-old, 1964 vintage, I'm asking you, how much was it retailing for? Hailed as ludicrous at the time. You're guessing again, I can see. That's okay. After 3, 2, 1. A and A. And the lounge absolutely are saying A as well. So you have a lot of consensus from the lounge guys. And I can tell you that indeed it was 100 quid. Yeah, there's your pass mark. You're on safe ground, safe ground. Alexander, you need 1 for a pass?
Yeah, I still need 1, yeah.
Fantastic. So there you go, around £100 for a Black Bowmore, and if you had a couple of bottles of those that you'd invested in back in the day, you'd be sitting pretty now. But hindsight is 20/20 vision, doesn't it? Absolutely, you'd have probably drank them, honestly, wouldn't you? You'd have probably made all the ones that are still sealed even more valuable, but that's okay too. Question 8: which is the largest by capacity litres per annum of the current flora and fauna distilleries?
My head hurts now.
We're looking for the largest by capacity of the current flora and fauna releases from Diageo, of which there are 11. Is it A, Caol Ila, B, Linkwood, or C, Teaninich? I should have had an asshat here, right? Jimmy Legg will be demanding an asshat icon for this one. As soon as there's a capacity question, surely it deserves an asshat, right? Oh, this Teaninich in my glass right now, coincidentally, is absolutely so gorgeous. You're guessing, guys? That's okay.
No, I don't think so. I don't think I'm
I
guessing.
think it's a toss-up between two.
Oh, Alexander's confident of his pass mark. Fantastic. After 3, Alexander, 2, 1. Give me your answers. C from Helen and Andy, and C from Alexander, thinking Teaninich. Caol Ila is 6.5 million litres or thereabouts. It doesn't matter because Caol Ila is not a flora and fauna release. I gave you a wee 50-50 option there. Caol Ila is now part of the extended classic malts with an official 12-year-old. It was once flora and fauna. Linkwood is flora and fauna, but it's smaller than the 10 million plus litres per annum that Teaninich is capable of. Fantastic. Good guessing, and the lounge did very, very well with that one as well. One of my favourite distilleries, one of my favourite, interesting, under the radar, lemon sorbet, delicious. I was going to say wee Highland distilleries, but as I've just proved, pretty big Highland distillery. Question 9. What has Bimber Distillery released recently? This is interesting. What has Bimber just recently released? Bimber in London. A 12-year-old pure malt. B, a 10-year-old blended malt. Or C, a 6-year-old single blend. Maybe there should be an asshat next to this as well. Marku Makinen is saying 3 out of 8, the worst ever. Sorry, Marku, my friend. Jimmy Legg's on a full house, 8 out of 8. He's killing it along with Graham Young, Gino Kimo. I wonder if they're playing it together. Peter Lee on 7. Jimmy Paul on 8. David Owen on 6. Fantastic. 7 out of 8 for Greg's Whiskey Guide in Paris. Great score. Graham Fraser is, yes, he's celebrating an 8 out of 8. Terrific. Guys, do you know anything about this London Distilleries release?
I think so.
Okay, good. After 3, 2, 1. C from Helen and Andy, and A. Oh, we have a difference here. And Alexander thinks it's a 12-year-old pure malt, and I guess Helen and Andy are saying 6-year-old single blend because of the age of Bimber, right? I don't think Bimber are yet capable of even putting out a 6-year-old. They have, in fact, released Interestingly, a 12-year-old pure malt. They are labeling it as a pure malt.
The apogee, I think.
The apogee, absolutely right. In fact, I've got a wee picture of it here to let you see it. I'll just give everybody a word of warning. I bought this. I went on and bought it this week. I bought it today. And it said $49.95, and I'd heard it was £60. So I thought, okay, that's £10 cheaper than I thought. Maybe I'll buy it. And I bought it. It was £6.95 for shipping. And then when I checked out, I get charged £68. They add the tax after the checkout stage. Be very careful. Click the buttons carefully and slowly and know what you're paying. It's £67. On hindsight, I probably wouldn't have bought it, but I've bought it now and it's on my way to here. It's a blend of Highland and Speyside malt whiskies that has been married together and aged in Bimber casks. The only way that Bimber can release a 12-year-old is obviously to source it at this stage. It's not their whiskey. It's Scotch whiskey. It's not labelled as Scotch whiskey, and it's not even labelled in a definition that's permitted under Scotch whiskey regulations. It's labelled as a pure malt. So it's interesting. More on that in future vPubs, no doubt. Question 10 is always an asshat. Greg's Whiskey Guide is screaming a swear word, an expletive. I wonder why, Greg. Sid Martin on 9 out of 9 along with Ben Whiskey with Molly. Graham Young on 9 out of 9 as well. Guys, the lounge is doing really, really well tonight. Really well. Whiskey Radar on 9 out of 9. You've all got your pass marks, so there's nothing more to talk about. You're in safe territory. Let's go into what I think is a quite mild asshat question this week. Question 10. Spot the false statement about Clynelish. The false statement. A, its spirit stills are larger than its wash stills. So the secondary stills are larger than the primary stills. B, it has 3 pairs of stills. C, it has 2 spirit stills for each wash still. Everybody's favourite Northern Highland Distillery, Clynelish, right? It's very, it's getting more and more expensive all the time, but there's lots of alternatives out there. There's always more whiskey. I don't know why people are chasing these Clynelish. If you know it's a good Clynelish, fair enough, but people are just chasing it because it's Clynelish these days, whatever, carry on. But there is something to celebrate about that. It is quite a unique Highlander. But I'm asking you, is it that the false statement is that its spirit stills are larger than its wash stills? Or is it that it's got 3 pairs of stills? Or is it that it has 2 spirit stills for each wash still? After 3, Alexander, 2, Helen, 1, Andy. Hold up your answers. Commit to your final guess of the night. 8, A for Alexander and A for Helen and Andy. The lounge for the first time tonight is all over the place. Rob Too Slow is shouting asshat at the top of his voice. He's absolutely right. It's a wee bit of an asshat. But it's interesting. This is interesting to me. It's interesting. That's how I'm justifying this. Interesting. The answer is actually its secondary stills. Its spirit stills are larger than its wash stills. So there you go. Well done. Fantastic. Let's have a jump in and see if anybody managed to get a 10 out of 10 tonight. I'm pretty sure somebody's came out. Peter Box, 10 out of 10. Fantastic, Peter. Lassie Hjort Otsman on a pass mark is 6 out of 10. Ronald, 8. Tony Nelson, 6. Jerry Miller, 8. Oh my goodness, all the scores are pouring in now. Jimmy Paul, 9, sorry, for Jimmy Paul. Lucas on 10 out of 10, very happy. Superb, Lucas. Superb, guys, for getting 10s. Gabriel Welding on a 9. Ross Fudd on 7. JG on 8. Yash Desai on 7. 7 for Hellswoods. You got 7, did you? Alexander, how did you get on?
Yeah, I got 7, yeah.
Hey, you got your target. Everybody got their targets. We can all be happy and go home comfortable.
A couple lucky guesses, but okay.
It doesn't matter if you lean against the crowd and use the community pool for some. If you have to have some lucky guesses from time to time, they all count, don't they? They all count. Fantastic. Well done.
At least the compass box was a given for me as a fan here.
Okay. Yes, of course, being a compass box fan. Aye. Have you tried the new Orchard House yet?
Yes, I'm lucky that I have family in Germany, and it came out really early in Germany, way before it came out in the UK. So yeah,
it's young, it's youthful, it's bright,
but I like it.
But it's very, very easy to drink. Listen, Compass Box are not just making blended malt sexy, but they're making blended malts really quite good as well. It's kind of hard to fault the products that come out there. I don't think I've had a bad Compass Box. I know that it can be pricey at times, But you're obviously a fan yourself, Alexander, and it's probably down to the fact that they do nice whiskey.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a sucker for a good label, and I think they.
You can be duped into
That's
buying for
fantastic.
aesthetics. You want it
And
to look
the
the Thompson Brothers
compliment.
too, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the whiskey is good as well.
Absolutely. Thompson Brothers, absolutely as well. Absolutely. Lucas is celebrating his 10 out of 10. Superb. 5 were just luck. That's okay, Lucas. It's the way it rolls. Fantastic. So many of you enjoying big scores tonight as well. Fair Winds has been in tonight. Good to see you, Chris. Good to see you, everyone. He's saying Fair Winds, Aquavita and Barflies, be safe. Tony Nelson saying I should have picked over the number of asked questions. Listen, it's all for fun. The way I look at it tonight, there's been big scores. People celebrating 10 out of 10s tonight. Well done, everyone. Gino Camo, Graham Fraser, both on 10 out of 10. That's the two buddies from Canada. They're friends. They can both celebrate each other. Peter Box on a 10 out of 10 as well. Fantastic. Just great stuff. A wee dram coming in right at the end from Jerry Miller. Thanks for another great Thursday afternoon. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you so much. Jerry's put his name forward for a wee game of Visit Speyside in the future too. He needs his wife to fix the camera for him, but if that works, he'll be on here. Listen, I'm going to raise this. I was going to raise an earlier glass, but no, I'm going to release a really nice glass for you guys and just say thanks very much for stepping up, putting your face on a public stream and playing along with me. It's always fun to put faces to names, not just for me, I've seen you before, but for the community at large as well. I hope you have a wee bit of fun too.
Indeed.
Been a
Thank
pleasure.
you for having us.
Always a school night.
It's always a school, even for me. That's the great thing about this, even for me. Let's raise a wee glass. Helen, Andy, you stars, Alexander, my friend in Switzerland, we'll raise a glass one day together again. Slanjiva, thank you so much.
So,
Big thanks to Alexander for staying right till the end as well. I know he's an hour ahead of us, so that's a lot of commitment. A couple of drams coming in saying, great crack. Seamus Gray, thank you very much, Seamus. Fantastic, my friend. And thank you for your recent support inside Patreon as well. Wonderful to see you here. And thank you for your virtual dram, Seamus. And Jimmy Like has bought my wee dram to say, we don't need whiskey, but we do need the vPub. There's just nothing else like it. Thank you so much for bringing the quality every week. We really appreciate it. Almost, that can, yes, emotional words, Jimmy Like. Thank you so much. I'll take it. And I'll be very, very grateful as well for you, Jimmy Legg, for your kind words and your virtual drams. Seamus and Jimmy, slant you to you both. Thank you. What a wonderful wee night. Listen, I hope that all of you, whatever you're doing, whether you're going to bully your friends and family, your guests into drinking whiskey with you or not, I hope that somehow our holiday season this year manages to stay robust enough for us to enjoy each other's company safely. I think we could all do with it. I think we could do with, like I said, the time that I spent in Frankfurt with my friends was not just a good time. It felt like medicine. And I think that makes sense to a lot of people right now. Ross Fudd is saying, Aquavita, it's serious, not fun. And Hoyt is in as well saying, thanks, fantastic. Helen is saying, a fab evening as ever and great to be able to take part. It's wonderful to have you, Helen. Ross Fudd is saying, he's just kidding. Fantastic night. Fernando is saying, enjoy very much the vPub as usual. Thanks very much. I wonder, Fernando, if you are in Spain or some such place, maybe South America or something. Danny Heaventon has bought me a wee dram. Cheers, Roy. Going to crack open the Glencadam 10 for the first time for a nightcap. Beautifully fresh. Well, I think you're going to love it. You're going to love searching for faults in a whiskey, and you won't find it, I think. I hope so anyway, Danny. I hope you love it. Helen is saying the best kind of medicine. Absolutely. And Chris Pollock is saying, thanks, Roy. See you next Thursday. Aye, that's what we'll do. We'll all get together again a week from now and do much of the same thing. And as long as you're up for it, I'll be up for it too. I'll raise that glass of delicious 1983 Teaninich to say thank you for hanging out with me on another Thursday night. You're all very dearly loved, and I'll see you a week from now. Beautiful whiskey folk, dedicated barflies. Slanchiva. Good night.